Chapter 2635. A ball of lightning actually pierced through the entire army of the Yen Capital Alliance, forming a terrifying energy tide. Everywhere it passed, there was no one who could withstand it. The people of the Yen Capital Alliance were vaporized in midair. A huge vacuum was revealed. Everyone was stunned, looking at the scene before them, completely dumbfounded. That lightning, could it be? Xening Yuan's eyes widened. There was joy in his eyes, but also worry. He was happy because he had another powerful ally at this time. However, he was worried because even with such a powerful ally, the way he saw it, it would be of no help at all. It would only drag his grandson into the mess, and that was not what he wanted to see. It's the deadly scholar? Black Granny's face revealed a look of joy. I can finally get my revenge. You're courting death. Black Granny's eyes suddenly widened before she finished speaking. Blood flowed from the corner of her mouth, and her ugly old face revealed a look of disbelief. She did not know when a big hole had appeared in her chest. A lightning blade had appeared in her chest, piercing through her. Impossible! How could I not have felt it? Black Granny was in utter disbelief, because she did not react at all. She only reacted when she was severely injured. I didn't expect you to escape last time, and you still dare to come this time. Explode. A clear voice was heard, and Black Granny's body suddenly exploded. Boundless lightning power burst out, and Black Granny was vaporized in an instant. The scene was extremely terrifying because she did not explode. For gods, especially gods at such a level, they would be able to be reborn as long as they had a single cell. However, if they were vaporized, it would be a different story. It was terrifying. Is this person really human? Only then did everyone realize that a young man in a light blue robe had appeared at the place where Black Granny had been standing. Everything happened too quickly. It was so fast that no one was able to react before it was over. A powerful sage at the pinnacle of the sage plane was taken care of in an instant. His spiritual soul was destroyed. Such power terrified everyone. It's the life-stealing scholar. Great, the Grand Elder is back. Many people couldn't help but cheer. They never imagined that their clan's incomparably powerful First Elder would return, and in such a domineering manner. He was simply too strong. With just one move, he had killed a sage at the pinnacle of the sage plane. Such a terrifying strength was simply a nightmare for the Yen Capital Alliance, but on the contrary, it was a great thing for the Z clan. There was nothing better than this. It ignited the little confidence they had left in them. Why are you back? Yi Junshin's figure also appeared in the air, and his eyes were full of anxiety and concern. Yi Shiwen's heart warmed a little, and he said, I just got the news. I was afraid that something would happen to the Yen Capital Alliance, so I rushed over. I didn't expect that something would really happen. The people of the Heavenly Alliance are too arrogant. Forget it, let's not talk about this first. Now is not the time to talk about this. I'll get rid of these people first, then I'll talk to you. Yi Shiwen turned around after saying this, and looked coldly at the army of the Yen Capital Alliance that was attacking in the void. But at this time, they were undoubtedly much more cautious. The amazing strength that Yi Shiwen had shown just now made them tremble in fear. You want to turn the tide of the battle just by yourself? You're like a mantis trying to stop a chariot. You overestimate yourself. All of a sudden, that black shadow finally appeared. He looked at the deadly bookworm that had been recorded in the record. He had not appeared in the previous battles, and he had thought that he had already left the Z family. Who would have thought that he would actually appear here at this very moment? Previously, it was precisely because he was wary of the fatal scholar that he had temporarily set aside his plans to deal with the Z clan. Now, he no longer cared about the fatal scholar. After all, he had brought such a huge army with him, but the fatal scholar still showed up. And he was stronger than he imagined. It should be said that he was much stronger than the impression that Black Grandma reported to him previously. You are the leader of the Yen Capital Alliance, right? I wanted to get rid of you last time, but I didn't expect you to discover me in advance and avoid me. Otherwise, it would not have led to today's incident. Yi Shiwen said coldly. Humph, life-stealing scholar, don't be too proud. Do you think that our Yen Capital Alliance is only limited to the Yen Capital Heaven? No, in the entire 33 heavens there are our people. You can't kill them all, the Black Shadow said with a hint of pride in his voice. The remnants of the Tian clan actually dare to be so arrogant. Yi Shiwen said, do you really think that this is still your world? You still dare to swagger in front of the world. It seems that you are really tired of living. What do you know? You rebels don't understand anything at all. When we find you, it will be the time when you all die. The Black Shadow laughed loudly, and there was a hint of madness in his voice. Whoosh! As soon as the Black Shadow's voice fell, he had already appeared in front of Yi Shiwen. He directly jumped through the space, and with a sky full of light, he slashed down fiercely. Countless laws condensed in his hand at this moment, forming a terrifying storm. The rich aura of the Law of Darkness filled the air, forming a black mist. In an instant, a black light burst out and blasted towards Yi Shiwen's head. Boom! This black light directly stopped 3 feet in front of Yi Shiwen, and was blocked by a thunder wall. That's all. It's just a small trick, and you dare to show off in front of me. A look of disdain flashed across the corner of Yi Shiwen's mouth. It seems that the so-called Tian clan is only at this level, then obediently surrender to me. I want to torture all of your secrets. Don't underestimate me too much. It's just a test. The Weir Capital Alliance leader shouted. Dark dance. With a loud roar, the laws of darkness condensed and covered the heavens and earth, making it so that no one could see what was happening. Those laws also had an extremely strong corrosive power, causing many people to involuntarily start to resist. Otherwise, it would not take long for them to be completely melted. In this dark sky, countless black dragons were flying as if they were dancing in the sky, but they had a terrifying offensive. They fell toward Yi Shiwen like a sky full of arrows. In this darkness, the Law of Darkness covered everything. He couldn't hear or see. He could only fall into the darkness forever. There was no other choice. Damn, be careful, Yi Junshan suddenly said loudly. He seemed to have noticed something. Although he was still in the darkness, he could perceive some changes. Among the many masters who cultivated laws, there were very few who majored in the Law of Darkness. It was not because the Law of Darkness was not strong. On the contrary, the Law of Darkness was very strong. It was just that it was very difficult to cultivate at the beginning because the Law of Darkness itself was of a very high grade. So, the difficulty of cultivating it was much more difficult than other laws. Just like the Law of Space, it was impossible to come into contact with the essence of the Law of Space without reaching the true level of Tao confirmation. Only some talented people or people with special bloodlines could cultivate it. Boom! A series of collision sounds came from the darkness. Only the cruel roar of the Weir Capital Alliance leader could be heard. No one knew what was happening inside. Suddenly, a dazzling thunder light tore the dark sky and directly broke through the air. This scene was extremely shocking. It was like the first thunder power in the universe, breaking through everything. How is it possible? The Weir Capital Alliance leader was shocked. How can your thunder power break through my dark divine kingdom? But it's only at this level. I have seen the power of darkness that is more terrifying than yours. With only this level, you dare to show off in front of an expert. Yi Shiwen's figure appeared in it. He reversed the law. Even in the darkness, his movements could be seen clearly. Yi Shiwen pointed out, and the infinite power of thunder condensed quickly. The violent thunder energy fluctuated, and then turned into an electric dragon. It blasted out, and the target was the Weir Capital Alliance leader. Bang! The Weir Capital Alliance leader couldn't withstand a blow at all. He was hit on the spot. He spat out a mouthful of blood, and his whole body flew out. How is it possible? In this world, unless it is a king-ranked realm master, no one can be my opponent. The Weir Capital Alliance leader still couldn't believe it. Do you think your strength is already at the peak? Yi Shiwen's voice suddenly appeared around the Weir Capital Alliance leader. Bang! Once again, he was blasted out by a huge force. The Weir Capital Alliance army couldn't help but be shocked when they saw this scene. Many of them knew that the strength of the Weir Capital Alliance leader was comparable to those monstrous geniuses who had been famous for many years. However, he was now being blasted by Yi Shiwen like a dog. It was simply unimaginable. Many people felt like they were in a dream. They couldn't believe it at all. He has become stronger, Yi Junshan said emotionally. He could clearly feel that although Yi Shiwen was already very strong more than 100 years ago, in terms of strength, he was probably weaker than the Weir Capital Alliance leader. However, Yi Shiwen was completely above him now. What exactly did he encounter outside? Chapter 2636. This was a complete transformation in strength. Although it was not a complete transformation to the legendary king-ranked realm, it was already amazing enough. However, Yi Junshan, who was also very close to this realm, understood that it was even more difficult to advance within this limit than to break through to the king-ranked realm. This was especially so for those who had broken through to this stage, but had yet to enter the king-ranked realm. Needless to say, the difficulty was unimaginable. The Weir Capital Alliance master fell heavily to the ground, directly creating a huge crack that was tens of thousands of miles long. Above the crack, Yi Shiwen's figure emerged and walked towards the Weir Capital Alliance master step by step. Be good and tell me everything you know. What does the Heavenly Clan want? Yi Shiwen's expression was extremely cold. Ah! The Weir Capital Alliance master burst into a terrifying roar. Don't be too arrogant. Countless laws of darkness emerged from his body as he spoke. They transformed into a terrifying torrent of dark power that surged directly towards Yi Shiwen. The dark power covered the sky and turned into tens of thousands of weapons. Each of them had terrifying destructive power and could kill ordinary cultivators of the doctrine plane. There were so many of them that even cultivators at the pinnacle of the sage plane would have to avoid them. However, Yi Shiwen's expression didn't change in the slightest. He just waved his hand and slapped away the dark weapons that were rushing towards him. They were dispersed on the spot. Even the laws couldn't withstand the bombardment of such terrifying power. They collapsed and dispersed. The scene was incomparably shocking. It's useless. This kind of insignificant skill can't hurt me, Yi Shiwen said coldly. How about this? Awaken, spear of darkness that is sleeping in my body. The Weir Capital Alliance master experienced heart-wrenching pain. His whole body split open, and his flesh was torn in half from the middle. It was like a blooming flower, bursting with endless light. Amidst these rays of light, a spear slowly rose up, exuding an endless power of darkness. It was a broken spear of darkness, as if it had gone through a terrifying battle. Even now, the blood of immortals still flowed on the spear. It was unknown just what kind of terrifying expert it had pierced through. Be careful, that's a superb artifact, Yi Junshan quickly reminded loudly. How could Yi Shiwen not know? In fact, he could see it even more clearly. If he wasn't mistaken, this dark spear should be the body of the Yen Capital Alliance's leader. And this Yen Capital Alliance's leader should be the tool spirit of this dark spear. For a mere artifact spirit to be able to cultivate to such a level, it could be said to be heaven-defying. Shio! Quick! 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 This dark spear broke through the sky almost instantly, and rushed straight towards Yi Shiwen's head. It simply tore through the sky, and didn't fly directly towards Yi Shiwen. Clang! A deafening sound of collision rang out. The collision of the two massive god artifacts created a terrifying shockwave that spread outward. Some of the Yen Capital Alliance's soldiers, who were too close, were unable to react in time and were directly annihilated by the shockwave. This sound contained the law of destruction. When countless laws of darkness were destroyed, the terrifying power formed spread out. Just as the dark spear was about to penetrate Yi Shiwen, a roulette appeared in front of him and slowly rotated. The laws of darkness that erupted from the dark spear were all absorbed by the roulette, unable to hurt Yi Shiwen at all. This is impossible. That's the 10,000 spell roulette. The Yen Capital Alliance's leader couldn't believe it at first, but suddenly, he recognized the artifact, the 10,000 spell roulette. This was also a mission that the Heaven Alliance had been carrying out for a long time. It was to find the life artifact of the legendary invincible expert of the Heaven Clan, the 10,000 spell roulette. According to the information they received, this 10,000 spell roulette had clearly fallen into Yi Shiwen's hands. Then, the person in front of them wasn't the deadly scholar at all, but Yi Shiwen. His eyes suddenly widened as if he had discovered a shocking secret. "You're Yi Shiwen?" the Yen Capital Alliance's leader said in surprise. "They recognized me with just a 10,000 spell roulette. It seems that the Heaven Alliance has been scheming against me for a long time." A sharp glint flashed in Yi Shiwen's eyes. In an instant, he deduced countless possibilities and came up with the most likely outcome. After he seized the 10,000 spell roulette, the Heaven Clan definitely wouldn't let it go. It should be known that a top-grade divine artifact was already very rare. Even a king-level sect didn't have many, let alone a peerless top-grade divine artifact like the 10,000 spell roulette, which was even superior to ordinary top-grade divine artifacts. It seemed that if it wasn't for the fact that he wasn't in the Kurfürst Road during this period of time, he would definitely be the #1 target of the Heaven Alliance. It seemed that he absolutely had to make the first move to gain the upper hand. He raised his hand and grabbed the dark spear in front of everyone's shocked gazes. A burst of sharp whistling sounds erupted from the dark spear, and an innumerable amount of the power of darkness pervaded his hand. However, it was completely annihilated by the power of thunder on his body. It couldn't do anything to him. Although the spear of darkness was mostly suppressed by the 10,000 spell roulette, it would be difficult for a broken top-grade divine artifact to grab it with his bare hands. Of course, this also had something to do with Yi Shiwen's terrifying physical body. Impossible! The Yen Capital Alliance's leader suddenly turned pale with fright. He was very clear that if his main body was captured, it would be a terrifying thing for a tool spirit. He quickly began to circulate his power, trying to make the Spear of Darkness return. The Spear of Darkness was his main body and also his strongest attack. Once he made a move, all his enemies would die. However, if he failed, then he would face the most terrifying consequences. How could Yi Shiwen give him such a chance? He directly put the Spear of Darkness into the Tianyuan mirror, and then it was suppressed by the Tianyuan mirror on the spot. The Tianyuan mirror could even suppress a peerless weapon like the Avicii sword, let alone a broken Spear of Darkness. Even if it was at its peak, it wouldn't be enough. Now, what other means do you have that you haven't used? You'd better be obedient and tell me what the Heaven Alliance is preparing, said Yi Shiwen coldly. Kill him and rescue the Alliance leader. At this time, the army of the Yen Capital Alliance, who had been at the side and didn't dare to come forward, suddenly reacted and rushed towards Yi Shiwen. The mighty army even had several experts at the peak of the Sage Realm. Even if the Yen Capital Alliance's leader encountered such an army, he would be helpless. The quantitative change had already caused a qualitative change. Only a true King Realm existence could fight against such an army. Ha 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 ha, you want to kill me? It's impossible. The Master of Darkness laughed out loud. However, before he could say anything, he felt as if someone had grabbed his neck. His eyes widened because he saw an extremely horrifying scene. He saw Yi Shiwen suddenly make a move at this time. A flag appeared in his hand and he suddenly waved it. In an instant, An endless army of monsters flew out and directly rushed towards the army of the Yen Capital Alliance. The army of monsters was like locusts. Wherever they passed, the army of the Yen Capital Alliance was swallowed up completely. There was no way to resist at all. There were originally a few experts at the peak of the Yen Capital Alliance who wanted to fight back, but they were targeted by the demon kings at the peak of the Sage Realm in the army of monsters. In a short while, they were also swallowed up completely. Before they even made it halfway, the remaining Yen Capital Alliance army were completely stupefied, going crazy. They didn't know where this army came from, but they didn't fear death and were extremely terrifying. Many of their methods were things they had never seen before. There were a few old-timers who were watching from the back, and they understood what was happening. However, they were scared to death, because they were looking at the demon god who should have been dead for a long time, and who had dominated all creation. That was something that happened in ancient times. When the ancient heavenly court of the demon race dominated the world, those demon immortals had conquered the myriad worlds and established their illustrious reputation. They had all survived from that era and had witnessed many things. However, those demon immortals should already be dead. What was going on with these demon race armies that filled the sky? Many familiar faces. Those demon gods who had been famous throughout the world had all been resurrected. They suddenly seemed to think of something. Demon Summoning Banner. It's the Demon Summoning Banner. Only the Demon Summoning Banner could possibly summon those fierce demon gods from the ancient times, because it was an indestructible original spirit. They had also heard of the legend of the Demon Summoning Banner. However, it was too late for them to realize it now. The densely packed army of demons was like locusts, eating through the sky very cleanly. Not a single drop of blood was left behind. The entire process took a long time. However, it only took a quarter of an hour. Yi Shiwen's face turned deathly pale in just a quarter of an hour. His spiritual power was as vigorous as the sea of stars in his body. It was hard to say how many people would be scared to death if they heard about this. It wasn't something that he could operate freely at his current level. However, he had gained a lot this time. After devouring the army of the Yen Capital Alliance, there were many demons in his demon summoning banner that were undergoing metamorphosis. In particular, there was a demon king at the pinnacle of the Sage Plane that was in the midst of metamorphosis. There was a chance that it would become a king-ranked demon king. It was the remnant of the ancient demon, the Bai Fong, that was left in the demon summoning banner. If this went on, perhaps one day, the supreme glory of the ancient demon king would be restored. Even during the era of the ancient heavenly court, when many demon kings were still around, the Bai Fong was known as one of the 10 great demon kings. Now die. The Yen Capital Alliance leaders' roar traveled over. Chapter 2637. The dark power of the leader of the Weir Capital Alliance began to burn. He did not stop at all and completely burned his life source. In the flames, his expression was extremely hideous. You forced me to do this. In that case, you will go to hell with me. If you want to die, let's die together. Ha 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 ha. The leader of the Weir Capital Alliance laughed wildly. Anyway, I can't survive even if I jump back. Let's die together. He knew that the army of the Weir Capital Alliance was made up of elites from all over the world. Now that all of them died in the hands of Yi Shiwen, the higher-ups of the Heavenly Alliance would be completely furious. He was not a member of the Heavenly Clan, so it was impossible for him to be forgiven. In that case, he would drag this guy to hell with him. If it weren't for him, he would have just conquered the entire Weir Capital Alliance and be proud of himself. The aura of the leader of the Weir Capital Alliance became more and more manic. It seemed to be getting stronger and stronger. It looked extremely terrifying. Poochie! But as soon as his voice fell, he found that there was a big hole between his eyebrows. His originally strong body began to become powerless in an instant. Countless life force began to flow out crazily. How could this be? The leader of the Weir Capital Alliance still had a completely unbelievable look. This move was too fast. It was so fast that he could not react at all. He felt that the power in his body was completely out of control. Ah! With a scream, the leader of the Weir Capital Alliance's body suddenly exploded and turned into nothingness in the sky. Everything was over. This is the end. The people of the Z-clan still seemed to be a little unable to accept such a situation. It was too fast and too easy. The enemy who forced the entire Z-clan into a desperate situation was easily defeated by Yi Shiwen. This is too fake. It was too easy. But in any case, they were saved. Soon, the Z family was in a state of jubilation. They obviously felt that there was no hope, so they had already prepared a way out. Most of them were ready to die on the battlefield. They fought desperately to buy enough time for the transfer of the important essence of the clan. They never thought that a miracle that they had never dared to hope for would suddenly appear. Moreover, it was such a pleasant surprise. All the enemies were defeated by Yi Shiwen alone. They didn't even need to do anything. "Wonder, are you all right?" Yi Junshan's figure instantly appeared in front of Yi Shiwen. He clearly saw that Yi Shiwen's face was pale just now. Obviously, Yi Junshan had consumed too much energy. He couldn't help but worry about his son's specific situation. "It's okay, father, I just consumed too much energy, that's all. I'm completely fine now." Yi Shiwen shook his head. His Phoenix regeneration technique had a miraculous effect on recovery, so this was nothing. However, he couldn't calm down. Although he had eliminated the Yen Capital Alliance's army, the Yen Capital Alliance was just a branch of the Heaven Alliance. He still didn't know what the Heaven Alliance wanted to do. He had to find a way to eliminate the Heaven Alliance. No matter what they wanted to do, there was no harm in eradicating them all. "It's all thanks to you this time. If it weren't for you, our Z family would have been eliminated." Zening Yuan's figure also appeared nearby, and he said with a sigh. He didn't expect the Yen Capital Alliance to bring such a terrifying counterattack that even the Z family couldn't resist. At this time, he deeply felt the gap between their Z family, a traditional tyrant in the 33 heavens, and the truly tyrannical forces. The gap couldn't be calculated by reason. "But why did you come back?" Zening Yuan looked at Yi Shiwen and asked. Yi Shiwen told Zening Yuan the news he got. "Now it's mainly about the Heaven Alliance. I don't know what the Heaven Clan people want to do, but obviously, it won't be anything good." Yi Shiwen shook his head and said. Zening Yuan and Yi Junshan looked at each other. They didn't expect there to be so many connections in this. In particular, the Heaven Alliance organized by the Heaven Clan people had been attacking everywhere recently. It was just that their original foundation was in the Yen Capital Alliance, and they were caught off guard by the Yen Capital Alliance, so they had no time and energy to pay attention to the situation in other places. After being reminded by Yi Shiwen, they finally remembered. Could it be for the legendary opportunity? Yi Junshan said. Everyone knew very well what the Kurfürst Road of the 33 Heavens existed for. It existed for the Kurfürst, and the legendary opportunity that the Kurfürst needed was in the 33 Heavens. With the situation of the Heaven Alliance, even if its strength had recovered over the years, it could still be said to be in a very difficult situation under the joint attack of the heavens and realms. At this time, making such a big move without hesitation to attract everyone's attention and block many foreign forces from entering seemed to be very unworthy on the surface. But if it was related to that opportunity, then everything was hard to say. If it was really related to the opportunity to achieve Tao, then no matter what price they had to pay, it was very worthwhile from a strategic point of view. With Father's reminder, I suddenly thought about it. It must be like this. Yi Shiwen suddenly realized something and said. It wasn't that no one had thought of it before. It wasn't difficult to guess, but very few people could be sure. That was because the opportunity had existed, but it hadn't appeared for a very long time. Even in many rumors, the legendary opportunity had already been exhausted. Even if it was for the Kurfürst, it seemed to have come to an end. Although everyone had been looking for it, many people had actually given up long ago. They did not expect to really find that opportunity, so they would not think in this direction at all. If this is not the case, it doesn't make sense at all. Why would the Heaven clan make such a big move? It seems that they are already staking it all. Yi Shiwen said, "In that case, then I have to go to the legendary Kurfürst Heaven." Although the Kurfürst Road had 33 heavens, the real opportunity was buried in the Kurfürst Heaven. The previous opportunities were also opened in the Kurfürst Heaven, so once these monstrous geniuses waited for the Kurfürst Road to open, they generally went directly to the Kurfürst Heaven to find the opportunity and would not stay in other places. That place was also an area that Yi Shiwen had never set foot in. He had no interest in the opportunity. He instinctively did not believe in the opportunity of the Kurfürst Heaven. To reach that step, everyone was an invincible big shot. It was possible to achieve the Tao by sweeping away invincible enemies. If one relied on others' charity, he could only be a pitiful worm. How could he be an invincible emperor? But at this time, for the Heaven clan, he had to go even if he did not want to. There must be countless Heaven clan masters gathered there now. If you rush there now, you will definitely be in danger. Yi Junshan could not help but say with some worry. Although he had clearly seen Yi Shiwen's strength, he was still worried when it came to this moment. In his heart, his eldest son had suffered too many disasters, and he could not bear it. "Father, don't worry. With my strength, even if the king-ranked realm masters take action, it will be difficult to kill me. As for the others, there is nothing to worry about. As long as I am careful, even if they set up some ancient array or killing array, there is nothing to be afraid of." Yi Shiwen grinned, and his words were filled with infinite confidence. With his current strength, he indeed had such qualifications. Although he had not really broken through the combat power of the king-ranked realm, in fact, he was already very, very close. In that case, we have nothing to say. I can't help you much as a father, but you can directly teleport from our Z family's teleportation array. Our Z family has set up a teleportation array from here to the Kurfürst Heaven, said Yi Junshan. All right, there is no time to lose. I will set off immediately. I can't continue to delay. Yi Shiwen nodded quickly. Yi Shiwen followed Yi Junshan and returned to the interior of the Z family. At this time, the Z family had completely settled down. There was no longer a scene of panic everywhere, as if it was the end of the world. Everyone looked at Yi Shiwen with awe in their eyes. Although they weren't at the front line, they had seen it with their own eyes. Such a huge army had been wiped out by Yi Shiwen alone. They couldn't help but be in awe of such amazing fighting strength. Fortunately, such a strong person was on their side. Previously, the strength of the leader of the Yan Capital Alliance almost made them despair. Even Zi Yuan, the strongest in the Z family, was not a match for him. He was almost invincible and invincible. Fortunately, Yi Shiwen's appearance completely reversed the desperate situation and allowed them to survive. This teleportation array was set up in the interior of the Z family. According to Zi Yuan's introduction, almost every ancient force in the 33 heavens would set up such an array. For the legendary mysterious opportunity, how many people would not be tempted? Especially in the 33 heavens, it was like a cage. How many people did not want to break through this cage? Ordinary methods were definitely useless. The only way was to find the damn opportunity. Perhaps there was a way to really break the curse and barrier on the Kurfürst Road. The king-ranked realm powerhouses definitely could not do it. Otherwise, the major forces would have rushed in together, so this was also their last hope. Take care of yourself, said Yi Junshan. And Yi Shiwen nodded and stepped into the array. Chapter 2638. The Kurfürst Heaven was vast and boundless. It was no longer appropriate to describe it as large. It should be vast and boundless. Some people said that the Kurfürst heaven might be as large as the other 33 heavens combined, but compared to the other 33 heavens, it seemed very barren. It did not mean that there were no living creatures here, but rather that there were no intelligent creatures that lived here all year round. Only some very powerful beasts lived in such a place. It was like the prehistoric wilderness in the legend. Other than these native beasts, there were also many outsiders. These people were guarding this place because they wanted to find the legendary opportunity. Those people would only come when the Kurfürst Road was opened. Normally, even the natives of the Kurfürst Road would not come here, because there were few resources here, and even the spiritual energy here was very thin. Besides, every opportunity that appeared before was when the Kurfürst Road was opened, and there had never been an exception. Therefore, it was meaningless for them to stay here during normal times. And now, it was the most lively time in the entire Kurfürst heaven. Although there were experts of the Heaven Alliance wreaking havoc everywhere, it made many experts who did not come here even more interested. Yi Shiwen was not the only one who could guess the reason behind it. Although the entire Kurfürst heaven was like a barren land, all kinds of news spread very quickly. Especially after the Heaven Alliance's rampage, those who dared to stay here could be said to be the strongest of their generation. None of them were weak. After Yi Shiwen entered the Kurfürst heaven, he was not in a hurry to do anything. He just waited quietly. If the Heaven Alliance wanted to do something, they would definitely take action. He only needed to follow the Heaven Alliance's guidance. As he stayed longer and longer, he received more and more news. Until now, the Heaven Alliance was still constantly targeting the remaining super antiques and monsters, as if they wanted to drive them all out of the Kurfürst heaven. But those who dared to stay were all invincible experts. How could they be easily scared off? They even launched a counterattack. The Heaven Alliance also suffered a lot. In order to kill those monsters and antiques, even if they succeeded, the losses were unimaginable. In the eyes of outsiders, they were simply crazy. Even if they could succeed, the foundation they had accumulated over the years would be completely destroyed in a short period of time. This was a lose-lose behavior. But they still did it. This made countless people guess that the legendary opportunity was about to appear, and the Tian clan had received the news in advance. Otherwise, how could they do this? Wouldn't they be stupid? No one wanted to give up on this fabled opportunity. Instead, more and more people gathered around. Although many people died because of this, it did not stop their enthusiasm. However, there were too many experts in the celestial race. It was as if they had mobilized all the elites that they had accumulated over the years. It was almost a carpet search. Even Yi Shiwen, who was hiding and waiting for news, encountered several groups of experts. Of course, with his strength, it wouldn't be a problem to kill them all. As time passed, everyone felt a kind of aura that was about to arrive. Although they didn't know what it was, they were very clear that a change was about to happen. When they had cultivated to this level, all the feelings couldn't be without reason. Whether it was the legendary opportunity or not, one thing was certain, and that was that something shocking was about to happen. Ha 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 ha, I've finally waited for it. It's been tens of millions of years. I've finally waited for it again. It's this aura. Last time I sensed this aura. Last time, I didn't have the ability to participate in it. But this time, whoever stops me will die. In the polar region of the Kurfürst heaven, a glacier suddenly exploded. A handsome, thin young man walked out of the exploded glacier. His body was still covered with ice shards. It seemed that they hadn't completely melted yet. His eyes were extremely sharp. He didn't look as sick as he looked. Success or failure depends on this. This is the last chance. The opportunity this time must be mine. In a volcano in the Kurfürst heaven, a man in flames walked out. He looked like a flame spirit, as if he was born in flames. He took a step forward and disappeared into the volcano. After he left, the entire volcano began to tremble violently before collapsing into pieces. It's finally reborn, although it's much earlier than expected. It seems that it was forcibly awakened by someone. Is it the Tian clan? That's good too. I can wait for millions of years less. The opportunity that the Qin Emperor didn't want back then is now mine. In the infinite sky, in a black shadow, a dark-skinned old man grinned hideously. He emitted endless demonic aura and then disappeared in the void. As the premonition grew stronger and stronger, many powerful auras were awakened in the Kurfürst Road. Many auras had been buried in the Kurfürst Road for millions of years. During this period, they had never really appeared. They were all waiting for the arrival of the final opportunity. On the peak of a mountain, an incomparably handsome young man stood with his hands behind his back. Endless cold wind blew, but it couldn't move him in the slightest. It's finally here. The chaotic world is about to begin. He opened his palm. On his palm, an incomparably huge emperor character slowly floated, emitting astonishing power. No matter who you are, what kind of trap you set, this time, it won't be as you wish. This lord is still worried. Otherwise, I wouldn't have arranged for me to be reborn after millions of years. I hope you won't let me down. Suddenly, the space around him fluctuated violently. A young man with a face somewhat similar to this young man appeared. He was also incomparably arrogant, with the attitude of a monarch descending to the world. Ji Renwang. The newly appeared young man stared at the young man on the peak and coldly spat out these 3 words. Ji Xinwang, you are not my opponent. Don't waste your effort. Ji Renwang said indifferently. Ji Xuanhuang's eyes suddenly narrowed. He looked at Ji Renwang and said, I might not be your opponent now, but in a few years that might not be the case. You were only born 100,000 years earlier than me. If we were in the same generation, victory or defeat is still unknown. I will let everyone know that I am the #1 genius of the current generation of the Ji family. The Emperor family, the Ji family. What a great name! Ji Renwang chuckled, as if he was affirming, but also as if he was mocking. So what if you are the #1 genius of the Ji family? If you can't see through this false reputation, do you think you have the qualifications to covet the Grand Tao? Has the Ji family really declined to this point? Even you, the #1 genius of the Ji family, is only at this level. Is it so shallow? Don't forget, you are also a member of the Ji family. Even if you are from the martial sect, this is a fact that cannot be changed. Ji Xianhuang suddenly became a little angry. Do you think that the people from the martial sect will really believe us? In the end, our Ji family is too powerful to the point that even the martial sect will feel uneasy. If the Qin Emperor was still here, perhaps it wouldn't be much, but now, from what I know, the higher-ups of the martial sect have always been guarding against you. No, it should be said that they are guarding against our Ji family, using your bloodline to interfere with the matters of the martial sect. So what? Your vision is still too small. You think that the Ji family is everything. The Ji family is not the sky, nor is it the earth. It is only a group of arrogant fellows. The noblest bloodline, the Emperor family? Ha 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 ha. Ji Renwang laughed heartily. Do you really think that the Emperor family has the noblest bloodline? There are 6 emperors in the Ji family, but none of them have become invincible emperors because of their bloodline. They are able to obtain the Grand Tao because they are the strongest, that's all. It is laughable that those conservative old fogies stubbornly guard the so-called noblest bloodline, but they don't understand this point, so their achievements will end here. But you are different, you may have the possibility to go further. Everyone's path is different, you need to kill your way out. Ji Xianhuang was speechless for a moment, then coldly shouted, I don't need you to lecture me about my matters. With the foundation of my Ji family, as long as I defeat you, I will be the strongest. The strongest? You are thinking too much. In your generation, perhaps that Yi Shiwen can be counted as a character, but what about the others? They are still far from being the strongest. A person's future is broadened by how broad his heart is. If those people are obsessed with obtaining other people's alms, even if they obtain the Grand Tao, it will be a kind of tragedy. Obtaining the Grand Tao is a kind of sublimation, a kind of transcendence, and not just an increase in strength. Those who don't understand this principle are not qualified to say anything. Ji Renwang looked at Ji Xianhuang with a smile that was not a smile. You can't be like this. Humph, I am from the Emperor family, how can I believe this kind of nonsense? If there really is an opportunity, a shortcut to the Emperor realm, then it can only appear in my Ji family, there is no other possibility. The reason why I entered the Kurfürst Road is only as a kind of training, so that I can catch up to you sooner. Ji Xianhuang coldly snorted. That's good. Look carefully, an even greater chaotic era is coming, the opportunity to end everything is also coming. The cause and effect that has lasted for countless years will be resolved in this era. The so-called Emperor family is only a slightly stronger ant. After Ji Renwang said this sentence, he was unwilling to say anything else. At this time, Ji Xianhuang also didn't have time to care about anything else, because in the sky, unexpectedly began to distort and shake, as if something was descending. Chapter 2639. It was as if a majestic force was being transmitted through the air. It was a terrifying force. Some people could even feel that the originally neatly arranged nomological laws were completely broken and crushed into pieces at this moment. Vortexes began to appear in the void one after another. It was a very shocking scene. Each vortex was billions of miles long and billions of miles wide. 33 vortexes began to appear in the Kurfürst heaven. They grew bigger and bigger. These vortexes could almost be seen from afar. After a day and a night, these vortexes finally took shape. At this time, these vortexes finally moved again. A portal was slowly spat out from within. These portals were two simple pillars made of unknown materials. They were spat out from the vortexes. The Kurfürst sect. It's really the Kurfürst sect. My God, I can't believe I can see the legendary Kurfürst sect in this lifetime. Many people were shocked, but they also recognized these portals in an instant. Because in the past, whenever the Kurfürst Road was about to have a chance, such a Kurfürst sect would appear. For ordinary people, this was a mystery that was not known at all. But for some ancient behemoths, this was something unquestionable. Once the Kurfürst sect appeared, it meant that the chance of the Kurfürst sect had finally appeared. Behind this Kurfürst sect was the chance of the Kurfürst sect. Everyone was very clear about this. Therefore, everyone was very excited. This meant that they could see another chance in this lifetime. Why are there cracks? Those with good eyesight clearly saw that there were cracks on the pillars of the Kurfürst sect. It was simply unimaginable. This Kurfürst sect was very, very large. It was tens of millions of miles long. At the same time, it also emitted a very simple and mysterious aura. It was impossible for it to be destroyed. Therefore, some people were completely shocked. They did not know why this happened. I know. It's because of the Qin Emperor. It is said that the Qin Emperor fought his way into the Kurfürst Road with the strength of the King realm. He once witnessed the appearance of the Kurfürst sect in the Kurfürst Road. It is said that he even saw the so-called chance. But for some reason, he flew into a rage and beat the Kurfürst sect back. Until now, there are traces of the Qin Emperor's attack on it. No way. This Qin Emperor is too ferocious. The Kurfürst sect has appeared countless times since ancient times. No one has ever heard of anyone being able to destroy it. Even with a superb divine weapon, no one could destroy the Kurfürst sect. How did he do it? I don't know. Some people say that the Qin Emperor was only one step away from enlightenment at that time. That's why he came after hearing the rumors about the opportunities on the Kurfürst's road. But what he saw seemed to have dissatisfied him, so he retreated. What did the Qin Emperor see? Why did he fly into a rage? I don't know. How can we speculate about such a person? However, it is precisely because of this that we know that the Qin Emperor didn't rely on this so-called opportunity to obtain the Tao. Instead, he relied on other methods, or he cut off everything to obtain the Tao. It can be seen that this opportunity isn't the only way. In the distance, Yi Shiwen was also looking at the Kurfürst sect in the sky, and he was also shocked. Even he couldn't see through the materials of the Kurfürst sect, but at least he could see that it couldn't be broken at all, even with his current strength. Perhaps if he used the Avicii sword, he might be able to leave a mark in it, but it was impossible to break it, let alone force it back. Of course, it might also have a lot to do with Yi Shiwen's current strength, which could not be compared with the Qin Emperor in the past. But what he could be sure of was that this should be the Kurfürst sect that the Qin Emperor beat back, because there was still a terrible spiritual power fluctuation on it that had not dissipated until now. Sure enough, his speculation was right. The Tian clan really got the news from the beginning. That was why they made such a big fuss. Even if they exposed their strength, they did not hesitate to grab this chance. Most likely, the Tian clan also wanted to snatch the opportunity and revive the Tian clan. Looking at the current situation of the 10,000 worlds, there was not a single monarch. If the opportunity fell into the hands of the Tian clan, then perhaps no one would be able to stop them. This was also the most intolerable thing for Yi Shiwen. The Tian clan was almost the enemy of all the races. It had nothing to do with their standpoint. This was also for survival. If the Tian clan gained power, he would not have an easy time. So, he would not give the Tian clan any chance. It took a whole month for the door to fall. During this period, more masters were attracted. Boom! The entire land of the Kurfürst heaven was shaking violently. They could all feel the violent shaking when the Kurfürst sect fell on the ground. That terrible power even startled many mindless monsters that lived here. They could only worship on the ground from afar, shivering, and did not dare to move at all. They only acted according to their instincts. So, they could understand the terrible aura emitted from the Kurfürst sect better than ordinary people. Before the Kurfürst sect really fell, many masters of the Tian clan had already appeared and surrounded the Kurfürst sect, not letting others enter. Your Heaven Alliance is really too much. Why don't you let us in? Someone shouted. Many people began to get excited. The Tian clan was powerful, and the Heaven Alliance was even more ferocious. They killed people everywhere. If it was any other matter, they would have let them in. But this was a matter of great importance, and they could not back down. They had been guarding here for hundreds of thousands of years, even millions of years. How could they give up? Among the Tian clan, many powerful masters at the peak of the Sage realm lined up, and there were many puppets guarding outside. Without exception, they were all puppets at the peak of the Sage realm. This was also something that could only be brought out by the Tian clan. Ordinary people could not even see them. Just the materials needed for those puppets were not something that ordinary people could afford. The puppet that Yi Shiwen had obtained from Zhao Tianquang was only at the peak of the Sage realm. He had already spent his entire life to make it, and there were not many in the Divine Puppet clan. But the Tian clan could bring so many puppets here without hesitation. It could be imagined how deep the foundation of this child was. No wonder he was about to rule the world twice in the past. It was not something that ordinary king-level sects could imagine at all. Many people had already retreated after seeing the foundation of the Tian clan. Although they could wait for the masters of the major forces outside to come to help, such a big movement here must have spread out. But it would definitely take some time for them to arrive. By that time, it would be too late. The good things inside would be taken away by the Tian clan. They had already seen many masters of the Tian clan going in and out, directly entering the Kurfürst sect. However, no one was willing to be the first to charge. Many people originally wanted to go to other Kurfürst sects to try their luck, but after thinking for a while, they knew that the situation in other places was probably similar. Since the Heaven Alliance had already planned to take this opportunity, how could they give them a chance? It must be the same in other places. Let's give it our all. I don't believe that many masters of the Heaven Alliance will die. We can only give it our all. Otherwise, this opportunity will have nothing to do with us. Someone shouted. But before he finished speaking, he saw a claw appear out of nowhere and penetrate his head, completely smashing him into pieces. A powerful Sage Realm Master did not even have time to scream before he died. "You're asking for it!" Suddenly, among the Tian clan, a nobleman in armor appeared, wiping the blood on his hands. "You've really dirted my hands. Today I will guard this door. None of you can think of going through. If you want to go, go ahead." "That's the 12 heavenly generals!" Someone exclaimed in shock and anger, as if he had recognized the nobleman. "It can't be. How can it be the 12 heavenly generals? Those 12 monsters and perverts." It is said that among the remnants of the Tian clan, there are 12 extremely terrifying masters. Even king-ranked masters would find it very difficult to kill them. They have even joined forces to kill king-ranked masters. They are so fierce and terrifying. Someone suddenly remembered the legend of the so-called 12 heavenly generals and was immediately scared out of his wit. Those 12 people were too cruel. Just hearing the names of these 12 people was enough to make everyone shudder. Even if they were all at the Sage Realm, they were probably not much stronger than ants in front of them. It was said that among the remnants of the Tian clan, these 12 people were the most likely to advance to the king rank. Moreover, the 12 heavenly generals were 12 places, but they were never fixed. There would always be people challenging these 12 people. Once they were defeated, the title of the 12 heavenly generals would be removed. Therefore, it could be said that the 12 heavenly generals were almost the strongest people in the Tian clan besides the king-ranked masters. Even the king-ranked masters could not do anything to them. The terrifying legend accompanied generation after generation of cruel killings and spread throughout the heavens and realms. That's right. I also heard that they participated in the assassination of the Phoenix King. Even now, the ancient Phoenix realm is offering a large bounty for their heads. Someone thought even more. These 12 people, any one of them was enough to completely stop them. Previously, they thought that the Tian clan had already used their full strength. Now, it seemed that they were finally going to use their full strength. "So you participated in the assassination of the Phoenix King. It seems that your life cannot be spared." A clear voice came. Chapter 2640. So, you participated in the assassination of the Phoenix King. It seems that you will have to die. A clear voice was heard. However, a person emerged from the crowd and leaped directly in front of the crowd. He was completely unmoved by the celestial army that filled the sky. Who else could it be but Yi Shiwen? "What, are you also from the ancient Phoenix realm?" The noble son of the celestial race glanced at Yi Shiwen and said. However, he did not take Yi Shiwen seriously at all. He was just another person who did not know the immensity of heaven and earth. Ancient Phoenix realm? I guess so. Yi Shiwen grinned. He was now the son-in-law of the ancient Phoenix realm, so naturally, he was also considered a person of the ancient Phoenix realm. "Humph, another person who does not know the immensity of heaven and earth," the noble son said coldly, not taking Yi Shiwen seriously. "But since someone is willing to die, I don't mind giving you a ride." Boom! His noble son took a step forward. Wind and thunder raged between heaven and earth. The color of the sky and earth changed. His appearance instantly changed. Although it was still the same appearance, he felt like a completely different person. He was a dignified god king, and Yi Shiwen was a dignified mortal with divine authority. In the same plane, we celestials are invincible. Moreover, you are not even at the peak of the sage realm. You dare to compete with me? You have a death wish. The noble sun attacked directly, and the divine light behind him shone brightly. Sir, he is just an arrogant person. There is no need for you to do it yourself. I will personally wipe out all the enemies for you. Suddenly, a man in battle armor stepped forward. Then I will leave it to you. The noble sun suddenly lost interest. This was not an opponent he could fight against at all. Sir is right. The Celestials are invincible in the same plane. Today I will let you all see. The armored man attacked immediately. In an instant the sky changed color, and countless divine rules flew up from his body, directly striking towards Yi Shiwen. The terrifying strength that belonged to the peak of the sage realm was completely displayed. Many people present instantly changed color. Although they all had the strength of the peak of the sage realm, they were obviously much weaker than the armored man. The Celestial's reputation of being invincible in the same plane was not just for show. Invincible in the same plane? How come I've never heard of it? Could it be that he's bragging? Yi Shiwen sneered and decisively attacked. He stretched out his limbs, and a powerful divine radiance splashed out from his limbs and bones. The golden radiance made the world collapse, and turned into a monstrous sea of thunder. It directly struck down towards that armored man. I've only heard of one person being invincible. I've never heard of a clan being invincible. There's only one invincible person in this world. Yi Shiwen's terrifying thunderbolt almost instantly broke the armored man's offensive, and directly swept across. The young master's expression suddenly changed. At that moment, he finally realized that Yi Shiwen was not easy to deal with. Yi Shiwen was not just at the Sage Realm intermediate stage as he seemed to be. Instead, he was so strong that many people could not even look up to him. The young master immediately attacked, and one hand reached out towards the armored man, grabbing him directly, wanting to drag him out of Yi Shiwen's attack range. But his reaction was still too slow, or rather, Yi Shiwen's speed was too fast. He rushed forward like a giant dragon, and his hands tore out golden light all over the sky. The armored man screamed in pain as he was torn in half in the air, and then was swallowed by a beam of blood light from the demon-calling flag. Everyone looked at the scene in front of them and felt that it was unreal. The armored man was strong and very strong. He was rarely a match for those at the peak of the Sage Realm. Along the way, he killed mountains of corpses and seas of blood. Of course, he could not compare to the 12 divine generals, but other than the 12 divine generals, it was difficult to find a match for him. He was also a legend, but now he was torn apart by Yi Shiwen with his bare hands. This kind of terrifying power deterred everyone, letting them know the strength of the person in front of them. With just one move, he had killed an expert at the peak of the Sage Realm. He was strong, too strong. Now Yi Shiwen gave people a kind of momentum that could devour mountains and rivers, and his power shook in all directions. With one move, he drowned the sun and the moon, and with his strongest attack, he had killed an expert at the peak of the Sage Realm. Who the hell is this person? How can he be so strong? Hiss. I remember now. Isn't this the Yi Shiwen who made a name for himself before? No way, how can Yi Shiwen be so strong? Many people could not help but say in disbelief. If it is really him, then he really has something to do with the ancient Phoenix realm. He is the husband of the celestial Phoenix maiden. It is impossible to say that he has nothing to do with the ancient Phoenix realm. They were all old antiques who had lived for hundreds of thousands of years or even millions of years. In their eyes, Yi Shiwen was nothing more than a junior, and was not qualified to be mentioned in the same breath as them. Only now did they realize that they were completely wrong. Generally speaking, it was very difficult for the experts of the current era to compare with those old antiques, let alone those monstrous geniuses. So, no matter how famous they were, it was meaningless for those old antiques to make a name for themselves. A monster like Ji Renwang might not even appear in an era. But now, they suddenly realized that this junior in front of them might be able to replicate the miracle of Ji Renwang. In less than 100,000 years, he had reached the realm of strength that those monstrous geniuses had spent hundreds of thousands of years, or even millions of years to reach. And in the eyes of those powerhouses who had already stepped into that realm, Yi Shiwen had really reached a kind of limit. If his strength hadn't reached that critical point, then it would have taken him at least dozens of moves to deal with that armored man. In fact, it would have taken him more than 100 moves to defeat him. But now, he had defeated him in one move. This could only prove that his strength had already reached an unimaginable level. His vitality was so exuberant that it could suppress the clouds in the sky and cover the sun, moon, and stars. How could he not be strong? That noble young master's complexion finally became dignified. At this time, he finally regarded Yi Shiwen as a tyrannical opponent. However, it seemed that he could not deal with Yi Shiwen so easily this time. At least, he was not an opponent that could be killed so easily. Invincible in the celestial race? I don't think so. Yi Shiwen grinned and said something that made those experts of the heavenly race furious. This guy was even more arrogant than them. This was unbearable. However, that noble young master didn't move. Even if Yi Shiwen provoked him like this, he didn't casually make a move. He just stared at Yi Shiwen coldly. What's wrong? Are you afraid? If you are afraid, then you can all come at me together. Anyway, you are all trash. It doesn't matter how many of you there are. Yi Shiwen sneered. His eyes flashed with a sharp light. He vaguely remembered the first time he caused havoc in the ancient Phoenix world. It was the Phoenix King who stood against the opinions of the masses and protected him. Moreover, he had been protecting Hua Menghan ever since. Whether it was in public or in private, the couple was greatly indebted to him. However, in the end, he died under the siege of these heavenly race experts, and the so-called 12 heavenly generals were also involved. Not only did they cause the death of the Phoenix King, but they also caused a series of changes in the ancient Phoenix world. If it wasn't for this, why would he need to go through so much trouble and even go against the Dragon Island to protect Hua Menghan? All of this was caused by these heavenly race experts. Whoosh! Suddenly, that noble young master directly made a move. A mass of golden light suddenly appeared under his feet. This mass of golden light formed a divine bridge. This divine bridge extended directly under Yi Shiwen's feet. Then, he appeared in front of Yi Shiwen in an instant. It was as if he had traveled through space. No one knew how he appeared. It seemed as if he had teleported. This noble young master's palm slammed down towards Yi Shiwen. The surrounding world changed dramatically. Countless laws trembled violently as if someone was crossing a tribulation. Just when everyone was exclaiming, and it seemed as if Yi Shiwen couldn't handle it, they saw that he made a move at the critical moment. He blasted out a punch. Rumble! There was a terrible collision. The space between the heavens and the earth collapsed inch by inch. Unexpectedly, the yellow spring that could only appear during a divine tribulation emerged. A terrible astral wind blew in the sky. On the side of the noble young master, a strange phenomenon suddenly appeared. It was unknown when huge stars fell from the sky and smashed into the ground. This was not an illusion. It was real. It was pulled over from the distant outer universe by his skill. Some were simply the embodiment of the laws. It could be seen how strong his skill was. On the side of Yi Shiwen, the strange phenomenon was even more terrifying. Behind him, a huge wheel slowly rotated. It was spitting out a powerful force every minute and second. It was the 6 paths of reincarnation. Both sides had already used their full strength to fight and kill each other. Thump, thump, thump. The two sides collapsed upon contact. However, the person who retreated was not Yi Shiwen. Instead, it was the 12 divine generals who had been deified in many legends. As the noble young master retreated, he released Yi Shiwen's terrible strength into the void. His whole body was trembling. He was removing the power in a strange pattern. It was a very brilliant method. It was not something that ordinary people could comprehend. However, at this moment no one noticed at all. Everyone was paying attention to Yi Shiwen's tyrannical strength. The noble young master's face was also very ugly. In this one-on-one fight, he was actually at a disadvantage. He had actually lost. As one of the 12 heaven generals, he naturally had his own pride. Even if he were to face another heaven general, he would not lose. The 12 heaven generals were the most powerful group of people. They had always been the most formidable martial artists. They would always be defeated and replaced by even more formidable martial artists. Unless they became king-ranked martial artists, this would not change. Generation after generation, the legend of the 12 divine generals continued to solidify and become more and more terrifying. This was the first time that he did not have the upper hand against someone other than the 12 divine generals. Chapter 26:41. He retreated continuously, but Yi Shiwen did not give him a chance to catch his breath. While everyone was still in shock, Yi Shiwen had already pounced on him like a ferocious tiger coming down the mountain. Provoking the dignity of the celestial clan, Die. The young master was furious. He turned his hands over and a divine sword appeared, slashing at Yi Shiwen on the spot. This treasured sword was very strange. Although it looked like it was made of white jade, in reality, it was as hard as metal. A sea of stars burst out behind him, and blood actually began to flow out. Behind each sea of stars there were countless piles of corpses. They were actually piled up by the experts he had killed in the past. The whole scene was extremely terrifying. But Yi Shiwen was not afraid at all. He directly resisted it on the spot. His hands were wrapped in endless lightning, and he was not afraid to clash with the sword. Moreover, he was not at a disadvantage at all. The young master's jade sword could split the stars, but it could not even cut through Yi Shiwen's hands. It was simply unimaginable. It was especially so for the experts of the Sky Clan. They knew the origin of this jade sword the best. This was the weapon held by one of the 12 Sky Generals of the previous generation. With the blessing of the generations, by the time of his generation, it was almost no less than a supreme divine artifact. It was extremely terrifying, and it had the power of some supreme divine artifact. Many gods at the peak of the Sage Plane could not even react before they were cut to death. However, Yi Shiwen was actually able to resist it. How tyrannical was his body! Even the legendary body of the dragon race couldn't be compared with it. Yi Shiwen, that's Yi Shiwen. I was wondering why this name sounded so familiar. He is the guy who stole our clan's divine tool, the 10,000 spell roulette. What, the 10,000 spell roulette is also with him? That's great, let's snatch it from him today. At this time, the experts of the Celestial Clan finally reacted. Yi Shiwen seemed to have stolen their divine tools. This hatred was absolutely irreconcilable. However, they couldn't get close to Yi Shiwen at this time. A battle of this level wasn't something they could participate in. Not to mention them, even the legendary invincible figures of the 12 divine generals had fallen into a disadvantageous position. They wouldn't have believed it if they hadn't seen it with their own eyes. As for the allied forces of the various races, they were also dumbfounded. This junior was much stronger than they had imagined. It was not something they could imagine at all. At this time, they had already retreated, but the Tian clan experts could not. They still had to guard the entrance, so they could only form a supreme formation and barely protect themselves. But even so, under the fluctuations of the battle, even they would find it difficult to protect themselves. Not to mention having the strength to fight back. Deng deng deng. They could only watch the noble young master constantly retreating under Yi Shiwen's offensive. Their hearts were racing. Was this still the invincible celestial general they knew? Was this still the strongest person they knew? That human was too strong? Wasn't it said that the Son of Heaven was invincible in the same realm? These words even caused the experts of their own Tian clan to have doubts, let alone the experts they had recruited. At this moment they were completely scared out of their wit. Bang! Yi Shiwen suddenly slapped the body of that noble young master. Puff! The noble young master forcibly resisted this blow. He was not directly slapped away, but he also spat out a mouthful of blood. He was seriously injured. The muscles of his whole body were trembling. This time, there was no way to use the mysterious frequency to resolve it. He could only rely on the tyrannical strength of his body to forcibly resist. He had already fought with the Golden Dragon of Dragon Island. It was almost known as one of the creatures with the strongest body. That battle was earth-shattering. Although the Golden Dragon's body was unparalleled and its magical power was terrifying, in the end, it was still killed by him in a one-on-one fight. From then on, he had never met another creature that could compare to the Golden Dragon in terms of physique. At this point, he believed himself to be invincible. As for the human race, he didn't care at all. Not to mention the current humans, he didn't even care about the humans of ancient times who were said to have innate divine abilities. But now he realized that he was wrong. Moreover, he was very wrong. This human was the most terrifying demon in hell. He had fought in countless battles in his life. Some of them were incomparably difficult, but no one could force him to this point. Whether it was in the Celestial clan or among the geniuses of the various clans, he was the strongest. Countless powerhouses had fallen in front of him. However, it was a pity that Yi Shiwen was stronger and more terrifying than them. He had been completely suppressed after exchanging less than 1,000 move. In fact, even a counterattack had become an extravagant hope. After an abnormal flush, his face became even gloomier. This was a kind of shame. The battle between him and the Golden Dragon lasted for a full 10 years. Now, he was suppressed in just 1,000 move. In the past, he did not even dare to think about it. He had never been bullied like this before. Bang! Yi Shiwen's palm was covered in 3 golden thunderbolts. It was like a huge roulette, crushing everything in its path. For him, the ultimate mystery of the 6 paths of reincarnation fist, the 6 paths of reincarnation, had already been grasped by him. He could display it anytime and anywhere. He had also relied on the 6 paths of reincarnation to completely suppress this noble young master. Boom! The sky suddenly broke. Yi Shiwen's palm fiercely slapped the jade sword. It had to be said that this jade sword was very powerful. Although the others were shocked that Yi Shiwen could resist this jade sword with his bare hands, Yi Shiwen himself was shocked. This jade sword was really ridiculously strong. If it had been a regular high-quality god artifact, it would have definitely shattered after exchanging over 1,000 blows. However, this jade sword was only thrumming and suffering, but it did not truly shatter. This was already a miracle. It had to be said that this was a very powerful sword. Poochie! The palm of that noble young master directly burst open. Although Yi Shiwen's strength didn't break this jade sword, but the shock had passed through the sword and reached his palm. His perfect and flawless divine body suddenly burst open. His entire arm was numb, and he looked extremely miserable. My Tian clan is blessed by the heavens. Everyone is a genius, and I am a genius among geniuses. How can I fall behind others? The noble young master let out a shocking roar. His whole body was shining brightly, releasing a kind of supreme aura. Under his feet, a starry universe appeared. In this endless starry universe, all the corpses were piled up. And he stood on this mountain of corpses. He held the jade sword in his hand, looking down from above. It was boundlessly terrifying. He was about to launch a counterattack. He had already brought out his divine kingdom. He was planning to fight to the death with Yi Shiwen. Another group of arrogant idiots. Yi Shiwen sneered. Invincibility doesn't depend on words. nor does it depend on bloodline inheritance, but on one's own killing. You're still entangled with the so-called 12 divine generals, so you're already at a disadvantage, so you're not my opponent. You've already lost the will to compete. Even if you're given millions of years, you still won't have the possibility of achieving the Tao, right? So why, as the most talented 12 heavenly generals in the clan, you can only guard the door here? The person who chose the Tian clan's inheritance shouldn't be you. Shut up. The noble young master's expression changed slightly. If there was anything that made him unhappy, it would be this. Why? As one of the 12 heavenly generals, he was almost the strongest martial artist below the king-ranked realm martial artists in the Tian clan. Why did he have to give way? Why did he have to guard the door here? If the king-ranked realm martial artists had snatched it away, perhaps he would have nothing to say. However, this was not the case. The jade sword in the noble young master's hand started to hum. It immediately filled the sky with sword light. In an instant it attacked. Fast, fast, fast. His speed was too fast. This was his unique mystic art. It could increase his speed to an extreme and was unparalleled in the world. However, Yi Shiwen remained motionless. Just as the sword light was about to fall, he suddenly moved. The sword light splashed out from his fingers. It was thousands of feet long and directly shot out. It cut a huge crack in the void. Swish! It was a battle of speed. The noble young master's speed was very fast, but Yi Shiwen's speed was even faster. There was actually an illusion that both of them were going to suffer at the same time. The noble young master was instantly shocked. In an instant, he retreated more than 100,000 feet and stopped his attack. Yi Shiwen dared to exchange blows with him, but he did not dare to exchange blows with Yi Shiwen. The exchange just now had left a deep impression on him. At this moment, Yi Shiwen's body became a ball of golden light as he chased after the noble young master. The noble young master's body moved more than 100,000 feet away. However, he realized that Yi Shiwen was like a shadow following him. He had no intention of being shaken off at all. How can he be so fast? At this moment, he realized that not only was Yi Shiwen strong, but his speed was also ridiculously fast. Among the heavenly race, only a few of the 12 heavenly generals could catch up with Yi Shiwen's extreme speed. What's more, Yi Shiwen was able to catch up to him even though he had moved later. It was unbelievable. However, at this moment, Yi Shiwen did not give him any time to think. His fist came crashing down, and the 6 paths of reincarnation wheel smashed into the noble young master's body. Bang! This time, the noble young master finally could not take it anymore. He was sent flying, and his physical body cracked in the air. However, after a ball of golden light, he actually reformed. One could imagine how strong his divine body was. However, before the heavenly race people could heave a sigh of relief, a huge foot stepped down and actually cracked again. This time, the noble young master could not reform his body. Instead, his divine soul was destroyed. Chapter 2642. An extremely powerful 12 heavenly generals died in Yi Shiwen's hands, just like that. His ferocity struck fear into everyone's hearts. Even the heavenly clans who had always been proud and arrogant were no exception. The pride and arrogance that they had was only for the outsiders. Among their deities there were also people who could make them revere like God. Among them, the 12 heavenly generals were the best of the best. In their hearts, the 12 heavenly generals could not be defeated by anyone. However, their myth and legend had collapsed right in front of them, just like their belief had collapsed. If they had not seen it with their own eyes, even they would not be willing to believe it. At this time, no one dared to approach Yi Shiwen for fear of dying tragically. In the face of the strong, even they had to lower their heads. Who knew what kind of character Yi Shiwen had? If he was a person with a bad temper, wouldn't they be miserable? They had to be cautious about this. At this time, Yi Shiwen had no interest in talking to them at all. He directly rushed over and rushed into the Kurfürst sect. He did not care about the experts of the heavenly clans who were guarding outside at all. None of the experts of the heavenly clans dared to stop Yi Shiwen. Even though their superiors had already issued a death order, it seemed that it was nothing compared to their own life and death. At the same time, many people were doing the same thing as Yi Shiwen. They also broke through the Kurfürst sect one after another. Ha 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 ha, the so-called 12 heavenly generals of the heavenly clan are only SOSO. Watch me rush over. A sickly-looking young man with a savage smile on his face rushed over. Along the way there were countless corpses. Even the 12 generals of the Tian clan were unable to stop him. They could only watch helplessly as he rushed over. The 12 heavenly generals looked at the large group of people rushing over with a murderous look on their faces. They coldly gave the order to massacre, which made people shudder. How dare you stop me? I think you are all tired of living. An old demon charged forward. Wherever he passed, the experts of the heavenly clan turned into flesh and blood and were swallowed by him. Such a scene happened frequently in the Kurfürst sects everywhere. Even the 12 heavenly generals could not really stop everyone. They could stop one, but they could not stop everyone. Not everyone could go on a killing spree like Yi Shiwen. Even the 12 heavenly generals of the heavenly clan were all killed like chopping melons and vegetables. However, it was already shocking enough. It was like a crack that was opening up one by one. More and more floodwaters rushed over. Sooner or later, the dam would collapse. With the strength of the celestial race to contend against all the other races, if they were at their peak, they might have been able to do it. But now, how could there be such a possibility? They were just relying on the advantage of being prepared to bully others who weren't prepared at all. Yi Shiwen rushed into the Kurfürst gate, only to feel a distortion of space and fluctuations he actually came to avoid. This void was very large, but he could be sure that it was not a complete world, because he could not feel that kind of complete world. He could only barely feel some fluctuations of law. Yi Shiwen rushed into the Kurfürst sect and only felt a distortion and fluctuation in space. He actually came to avoid. This void was very large, but he could be sure that it was not a complete world because he could not feel that kind of complete world. He could only barely feel some fluctuations of laws. Yes, even if Yi Shiwen didn't care about this so-called opportunity. His breathing instantly became somewhat rapid. Because according to the legend, behind the Kurfürst sect was the Kurfürst road. Although everyone who obtained the so-called opportunities kept silent and would not say anything even if they died, many things before that were recorded by those who survived. They all knew very well that this throne was one of them. Legend had it that every throne represented an opportunity. There were a total of 9 thrones. There were only 9 in total because 9 was the limit. If one exceeded this number, they would encounter a natural moat. It seemed that there was a kind of existence in the dark that ruled everything. Because it had been too long, it was already impossible to calculate how many people had become emperors on the Kurfürst road, because not everyone who had obtained a fortuitous encounter had become emperors in the end. It was possible that they had gone into hiding and did not show up at all. It was also possible that they had completely perished. These things were very possible. At this time, Yi Shiwen seemed to have realized very clearly that there should be only one throne left. In other words, this time, it was very likely to be the so-called last opportunity. He looked over, and saw that the 9 thrones were equally vast and boundless. However, the remaining 8 thrones were faintly discernible with human silhouettes sitting on them. He couldn't see what these human silhouettes looked like. The only thing he could see was that these human silhouettes were extremely powerful. Each of them had the imposing aura of a monarch. Yi Shiwen had a firm will, but he still felt an impulse to kneel down in front of them. There was only one possibility, and that was that these figures were actually emperors. In other words, the legend was true. Indeed, someone had become an emperor through the opportunity of the Kurfürst road. How terrifying was this! It wasn't because someone had attained the Tao, but rather, it was because no one knew who had done such a thing. This was truly unimaginable. One must know that even if he wanted to forcefully raise his parents to godhood, it would be impossible. Yet, someone had actually managed to enlighten an imperial monarch. That was the most tyrannical existence in the heavens and realms. To think that it could be created in such a way. What kind of existence was that? Just thinking about it made him shudder. It seemed like a huge conspiracy, like a big bloody mouth that was about to swallow everyone. No wonder even Yi Wudi, with the foundation of the ancient heavenly court, said that he was in danger of dying. It was impossible for him to survive ordinary disasters. Who the hell is playing tricks here? It's simply scaring people. Yi Shiwen grinned. And now, apart from the 8 thrones, there was only one throne that had not yet had a real owner. It was still emitting a huge attraction, attracting people from all directions. Suddenly, he clearly noticed that there was a Qin character engraved on the throne. It seemed to be indicating something, but it was interrupted by someone. It was only an ancient character, Qin. Could it have something to do with the Qin Emperor? Speaking of which, this should be the second time after the Qin Emperor's generation that the Kurfürst Gate appeared. According to the ancient legend, the Kurfürst Road was naturally formed by the heavens to select the emperors. If there was someone among the people who came, the Kurfürst Road would open. Last time, it was the emperor of the Qin dynasty who asked the Kurfürst Gate to be opened. However, out of everyone's expectation, the emperor of the Qin dynasty not only did not agree to it, but also beat the Kurfürst Gate back. What secrets were hidden in it? His descendants were also very curious. Many knowledgeable people and many calm people thought that there might be something ominous in it. Otherwise, the Qin emperor would not have needed to beat the Kurfürst Gate back then. However, no one knew what exactly was in it. After that, the Qin emperor also kept his mouth shut, and did not have the slightest intention to mention it. The Qin emperor was strong and invincible all his life. When he was in the king realm, he was almost invincible in the world. After obtaining the Tao, no one dared to ask him questions that he was unwilling to answer in front of him. And because of this mystery was also passed down to this day. And at this time, Yi Shiwen had a strong feeling that this mystery was about to be solved. However, despite the existence of such an unsolved mystery, some people were very curious about what happened to those who obtained the opportunity in the end. Why did no one appear in the end? It should be said that all the people who obtained the Tao from ancient times to the present were now gone. What exactly happened to them? But it was not enough to stop people's enthusiasm for the Kurfürst Road. After all, it was the only known opportunity and channel for them to ascend to the throne of the emperor. In that distant age, only the Qin emperor was known to have obtained the Tao with his own strength and succeeded. That person was also an amazing person like the Qin emperor. They did not have such confidence. Therefore, they still came one after another. Originally, the Qin emperor's generation should have been the last one. The Kurfürst Road should have collapsed, but because of the expectation of you, the Kurfürst Road has not found any qualified successor after such a long time. Or is it because the Kurfürst Road was also injured, and they have just recovered? Yi Shiwen murmured to himself. He thought of a more horrifying possibility. If he guessed it right, it would be a shocking wave. Everyone would be torn to shreds. If that was the case, then the Kurfürst Road was probably not formed naturally, and someone was really choosing the Kurfürst Road. Then, what was his purpose, and how strong was his strength? And now, the last competition for the Kurfürst Road had also been delayed to the current generation. It would be more intense and more bloody because it was the last one. But also because it was the last one, it was even more impossible for those who were interested in the opportunity of the Kurfürst Road to let it go. Thinking of this, Yi Shiwen had a headache. He was very clear about how tempting this throne was to everyone. It should be known that even Yi Shiwen, who thought that he was not tempted at all, was a little tempted. After all, this was an opportunity that could let him get it easily. If he missed it, with his situation, he was afraid that it would be impossible for him to really step into that level like most people. The top of the pyramid was always a game that only a few people played. Just when Yi Shiwen was distressed, many tyrannical figures had already appeared in this small space. Although they were much slower than Yi Shiwen, they were already very fast for them. Chapter 26:43. As more and more people arrived, they also noticed the 9 thrones in all directions. 8 of the thrones were scattered in all directions, surrounding the throne in the middle. The phantoms sitting on the 8 thrones seemed to be chanting scriptures, guiding something to be born. Yi Shiwen seemed to be able to hear those scriptures. They were incomparably profound. Even Yi Shiwen couldn't understand them. It seemed as if it was another language, another level, and another system. However, it gave people a very mysterious and vast feeling. Everyone fell into a state of deep shock. Yi Shiwen looked at these virtual shadows sitting upright on the thrones. It seemed as if they were in extreme pain. Their faces would reveal a painful expression from time to time. However, Yi Shiwen didn't dare to be sure because he couldn't see the virtual shadows clearly. Not to mention, he couldn't see their expressions clearly. He just had this inexplicable feeling. He smiled in his heart, thinking that he was thinking too much. After all, how could that be possible? If the ones sitting on the thrones were as he had guessed, invincible geniuses who had obtained the opportunity, and later became emperors, with their cultivation, who could make them feel pain. Perhaps only they could make others feel pain. It was impossible for others to make them feel pain. And the masters of the Tian clan, who were one step ahead of Yi Shiwen, formed a large formation, surrounding the throne. It could almost be said that all the elites had come out. They were all masters at the peak of the sage realm, and they were even more terrifying than the masters guarding the Kurfürst's gate. And in the center of the entire formation, a master whose figure could not be seen clearly was floating above the formation, as if he was guiding something into his body. Although everyone did not know what the Heavenly Clan was doing, they were very clear about one thing, and that was that the Heavenly Clan was obviously here for the opportunity to become an emperor. In other words, it was very likely that their actions were related to that opportunity. And since it was related to the opportunity, they must not be allowed to succeed. Damn it, let's join hands and kill all of these Tian clan people first. It's been a long time since I've started a massacre. Suddenly, a loud roar came from afar. It was an incomparably huge, violent ape. It was holding an incomparably huge axe in its hand. It looked like the legendary Pangu axe that split the heavens and the earth. It was completely different from the stick-type weapons that other apes liked. This violent ape was covered with golden hair, and it had 6 ears, 3 on the left and 3 on the right. 6-eared macaque, there is a 6-eared macaque? Yi Shiwen was shocked. It was almost a creature of myths and legends, and it was not like the Dragon Clan, which was also famous in the heavens, but after all it was a huge group of creatures. The 6-eared macaque had been extremely rare since ancient times. Later on, their bloodlines simply disappeared. It was as if they had done something that angered the heavens, so they were punished. There were also people who said that this race had once angered a powerful imperial monarch, and it was the imperial monarch who had cursed their race to extinction. This curse had accompanied their bloodline for generations to come, never to be removed. Therefore, since then, the 6-eared macaque never appeared as a clan again. Every time it appeared, it at most appeared in the form of an individual. According to the speculation of many powerful experts, it should be the 6-eared macaque's bloodline in the divine ape. Every once in a while, someone would revive the 6-eared macaque's bloodline, so it was said that the 6-eared macaque would never disappear. However, in fact, it could not reproduce, and could only rely on this kind of lucky method to occasionally appear, which was no different from being extinct. The last time a six-eared macaque appeared was already millions of years ago. There was once a heaven-defying monkey who turned the Emperor's road upside down. Could it be this monkey? "You monkey, you're not dead yet!" Suddenly, another figure leaped out. They whistled and spread their wings, turning into a giant golden-winged roc. "Millions of years ago, you secretly learned the supreme sacred technique of my clan and escaped by faking your death. Everyone thought you were dead, but to think that you are still alive. Hee hee, Big Bird, your golden-winged roc clan is indeed amazing, but are you sure you want to fight with me now? You are absolutely no match for me in the great rock sky shining art." The six-eared macaque chuckled, and his face seemed a bit wretched. He was not afraid at all, and he did not feel that there was anything wrong. Everyone felt a little nervous. It was said that the six-eared macaque was born with supernatural powers. He could almost hear the 9 heavens and the 9 hells. His power was so great that there was nothing in the universe that he could not hear. That was why there was a saying that the arts could not be transmitted to 6 ears. It was said that for a period of time, in order to guard against these six-eared macaques, they had to set up layers of enchantments to prevent them from hearing anything. For a long period of time, the six-eared macaque was hated by everyone in the universe because of this matter. The golden-winged great rock sky shining art was a supreme technique passed down by their ancestors. It was said that the golden-winged great rock sky shining art was a supreme technique passed down by their ancestors. It could be said to be a top-notch technique. When cultivated to the extreme, it was not impossible to see the great Tao. However, this monkey had heard it and successfully cultivated it. Logically speaking, although the great rock sky shining art was powerful, it was a technique created according to the characteristics of the golden-winged great rock clan. It was not something that ordinary people could learn. Even the phoenixes, the vermilion birds, and the other clans could not learn it. However, this monkey had actually done it. It was truly heaven-defying. "You monkey, are you not afraid of death? This time, don't even think about escaping." Millions of years ago, the golden-winged great rock clan was not the only one whose supreme technique was eavesdrop. When the time comes, there will be people who will come to settle the score with you. The golden-winged great rock said coldly. However, he did not make a move. He was also very clear that compared to the opportunity to become a martial emperor, it seemed that nothing else mattered. "Ha ha ha, what am I afraid of? This opening of the Emperor's Road is already the last time. Whether I succeed or not, it is already the last time. Do I still need to pretend to be a coward? When I get out of the Emperor's Road, I will immediately break through. We are all in the titled king realm. Who am I afraid of?" The six-eared macaque dared to show his face when he had so many enemies. Obviously, he had already made full preparations and had thought of everything. This was also the truth. These peerless geniuses were all peerless geniuses who dominated their generation. Some were even invincible demons who had swept away millions of years ago. However, for the sake of the Emperor's Road, which one of them did not pretend to be cowards and be careful? They looked mighty, but as long as they did not break through to the titled king realm, they could die at any time. Not to mention those old antiques who had reached the limits of their martial arts, even those who were originally weaker than them could pose a huge threat to them after breaking through to the titled king realm. They could even kill them. Such things happened everywhere. They could not help but feel sad for the loss of their own kind. Moreover, the younger generation like Yi Shiwen didn't even know where their ancestors were when they were moving unhindered in the world. But now they had caught up with them one after another. There was a feeling of the new generation replacing the old one. This made them feel incomparably uncomfortable in their hearts. Now all of this was finally going to end. Whether or not they could obtain the opportunity, this was the last opportunity to become a martial emperor. They would fight for it one last time. The days of pretending to be cowards were finally going to end. After this, they would let the whole world know how terrifying they were and reclaim the glory that belonged to them. Do you still have the mood to fight among yourselves here? Can't you see that the heavenly race is about to succeed? Let's kill those heavenly race people first. Then we will fight for it. Do you have any objections? Suddenly, a figure walked out. It was a man who seemed to be immersed in flames. The flames were burning fiercely. It was as if he was the embodiment of fire in this world. I did not expect that even you, Xinghua, did not die. You have disappeared for more than 1,000,000 years. Did I really think that you were dead? A lazy voice spoke. A sickly-looking young man walked out. You still look so sickly, young Master Emptiness. Xinghua looked at the young man and said, The last time we fought was more than 1,000,000 years ago. I wonder if you have improved in the past 1,000,000 years? You do not need to worry about this. Anyway, when the time comes, you will know. None of you are willing to make the first move. I do not mind. I have been unhappy with these heavenly race people for a long time. They really think that they are something. They are just a bunch of leftover evildoers. Young Master Emptiness laughed. Then, he made his move. With a divine light that filled the sky, he attacked and suppressed the big array. After Mr. Emptiness, one terrifying aura after another also made their move. Every single one of them was no weaker than Mr. Emptiness. These were all monstrous geniuses who had shocked the world for hundreds of thousands of years or even millions of years. Their abilities were beyond the imagination of ordinary people. In fact, they were not even from the same world. Many people could survive against king-ranked realm martial artists. They had extraordinary skills. Yi Shiwen was not in a hurry to make his move. There was no need. The heavenly race could not withstand the joint attack of so many terrifying monsters. He looked at these monsters with interest. All of them matched the list of experts that he had scouted before. Many of them had died many years ago, but now they had appeared here. As expected, rumors were not trustworthy. These people had hidden their names and waited until today for this moment. After that, those monstrous talents could not attack casually. The 12 heavenly generals of the heavenly race dared to come. Moreover, there was more than one. Any one of these 12 heavenly generals could rival these monstrous talents. There were not just 12 of them. It should be said that the previous 12 heavenly generals had all appeared. Although they were defeated and eliminated, they were not weaker than these arrogant and despotic monstrous talents. For a moment, the entire scene was a chaotic battle. Suddenly, Yi Shiwen heard a familiar voice. Wu Zimo, how dare you? Chapter 2644. Yi Shiwen looked up and saw that in a corner of the battlefield, Wu Zimo was chasing a golden figure. It was none other than the young Kuan Ping. Over the years, he had not been in the Kurfürst Road, so no one knew that Yi Shiwen had left the Kurfürst Road. The young Kuan Ping had become the target of many people. Wu Zimo had even chased after the young Kuan Ping several times in order to force Yi Shiwen out. He did not know that Yi Shiwen had already left, so everything was useless. But the young Kuan Ping was very stubborn. Even though he was targeted by many openly and secretly, and had escaped from death several times, he did not say that Yi Shiwen had already left. Over the past 100 years, the young Kuan Ping had been hunted down hundreds of times. Many times, he had to pay a terrible price to escape. However, the effect of this was also very obvious. While other people of the same generation were not qualified to participate in this scuffle between evildoers and antiques, he could. Although he was only half a step into this realm, and his combat power was far inferior to Yi Shiwen's, he had already left other people of the same age behind by a large margin. Where is Yi Shiwen? Why is he not here? Is he not qualified enough to be here? Then I'm so disappointed. Wu Zimo had a sinister smile on his face as he laughed heartily. In his hands, countless stone qi began to condense, turning into chains of laws. Most of them protected him, and only some of them attacked the young Kuan Pung. He did not use his full strength, but even so, the young Kuan Pung was still in a difficult situation. Although the young Kuan Pung was already much stronger than ordinary people at the peak of the Sage Realm, he still did not have any advantage when facing Wu Zimo. Instead, he was completely at a disadvantage. Wu Zimo, you were only born a few years earlier than me. If I were your age, I would have beaten you up in minutes. The young Kuan Pung was jumping up and down as he was being chased, and he kept cursing. If you want to blame someone, then blame that damned Yi Shiwen. He killed my brother and made my heart ache. So, I will kill you and let him have a taste of that pain. Ha ha ha. Wu Zimo's eyes were bloodshot and his expression seemed to be somewhat crazy. He didn't even care about the so-called emperor opportunity that was so close at hand. One could imagine what kind of impact Yi Shiwen's killing of Wu Ziyu had on him. It's your younger brother who deserves to die. Both of you brothers deserve to die. Young Kuan Pung roared. You're courting death. Wu Zimo was enraged. A chain of nomological laws formed from stone energy instantly pounced down, wanting to pierce through the young Kuan Pung. Whoosh! There was a violent piercing sound, and a ball of lightning appeared out of thin air. It appeared so suddenly, or rather, it was so fast that it was able to deceive everyone's eyes. It suddenly appeared on the battlefield and instantly destroyed the stone chi chain of laws. If you want to find me, then come. There's no need to vent your anger on others. A cyan-clothed youth appeared on the battlefield along with a dull voice. It was none other than Yi Shiwen. You finally appeared, you finally appeared. When Wu Zimo saw who it was, the ferocious expression on his face became even more conflicted. However, he wasn't surprised by Yi Shiwen's appearance. Perhaps, among so many people, he might even have more confidence in Yi Shiwen than young Kuan Pung. He would definitely appear, and he would definitely appear on time. He did not believe that Yi Shiwen would not appear at such a crucial moment. If not for the fact that king-ranked formidable martial artists were not allowed to enter, all the king-ranked formidable martial artists would have already swarmed in. No one could resist the temptation of the opportunity to become a Dharch. Not even he was an exception. However, his hatred for Yi Shiwen made him want to kill Yi Shiwen first before he went to snatch that opportunity. No matter how he hid in these hundreds of years, he would definitely appear at the final moment. And now, everything seemed to verify his thoughts. Big brother, why are you back again? Young Kuan Pung was a little surprised to see Yi Shiwen. Among these people, only he knew that Yi Shiwen wasn't hiding at all. Instead, he had already left the Kurfürst Road. I had no choice. Someone is stirring up trouble in the Kurfürst Road. There's nothing I can do if I don't come. Yi Shiwen was referring to the heavenly clan masters of the Heaven Alliance, but Wu Zimo thought that Yi Shiwen was referring to himself. Yi Shiwen had come specifically for him. A cruel smile appeared on his face. Yi Shiwen, I let you escape last time, but this time, you won't be so lucky. No one will come to save you. Wu Zimo said in a cold voice. Previously, Yi Shiwen had done that to him at a crucial moment. That was why he had missed a golden opportunity. He still remembered that incident until now. Do you think I need it? Yi Shiwen said coldly, I didn't come for you. But it's fine. I can take care of you at the same time, lest you become a scourge like now. Wu Zimo's expression was even colder. His aura changed and became fiercer. The sword in the stone had already appeared in his hand. He was also wearing a stone robe. This stone robe had ancient patterns on it. It looked extremely ancient and profound. It didn't seem to be as simple as the condensation of ordinary stone energy. It was more like a companion magic treasure like the sword in the stone. Could it be that Wu Zimo had two accompanying Dharma treasures? He was also secretly surprised. Normally, even for a holy spirit in the stone, it was already very difficult for it to have a companion magic treasure, let alone two. But thinking about it carefully, it was not impossible. Although Wu Zimo was not as amazing as Ji Renwang, who had entered the ranks of monstrous geniuses when he opened the Kurfürst Road for the first time, he had already entered the ranks of monstrous geniuses on the second time. Although he was not as amazing as Ji Renwang, he was also one of the top geniuses. In their generation, only the two of them had managed to step into this realm. One could imagine how difficult it was to achieve this. Yi Shiwen, go all out. I will kill you when you go all out so that you will never be able to transcend. Wu Zimo's expression was indifferent. It was as if he had become a completely different person. He had changed back to his usual cold and ruthless self. No need. If I feel that it is dangerous, I will naturally use my full strength. But I think it is far from enough if you are alone. Yi Shiwen said lightly. Since you want to die, then I will fulfill your wish. As Wu Zimo said this, he stabbed his sword towards Yi Shiwen. The speed was extremely fast, and the stone qi exploded in an instant. It was incomparably dazzling, a kind of light that belonged to stone qi. It directly lit up half of the sky, causing chaos in the aura of the world. If it had been any other time, it would have definitely attracted the attention of countless people. But at this time, no one was paying attention. Everyone was fighting, especially when the approaching aura was getting stronger and stronger. Everyone knew that they could not let the heavenly race continue like this. Otherwise, they would have no chance at all. The battles in other places were more intense than here. Who would pay attention to this place? Probably only the young Kuanping would pay attention. At this moment, his eyes were fixed on the two of them. It was rare to see such a monstrous battle. He was already half a step into this realm, but if he wanted to truly step into this realm, it would not be an easy task. This was the limit of the combat power of the Sage Realm. It was like a forbidden zone. Stepping into the forbidden zone would make one the king of the Sage Realm, the invincible realm. Some experts at the peak of the Sage Realm, even if they successfully entered the king-ranked realm, were not able to step into this realm. In a sense, this had become a symbol. To become a king-ranked martial artist, one did not necessarily have to pass this stage. However, if one could break through from this stage to become a king-ranked martial artist, he would be very strong the moment he entered the king-ranked realm. He would not be one of the weakest. Many people used this limit as a way to further their training. Not everyone could persevere through it. Only a rare few could succeed. Wu Zimo's hair seemed to have turned into strands of stone qi, dancing in the sky. When he attacked with all his strength, his aura rose to the peak, and only then did it slow down slightly. He had already reached the most powerful and fundamental level that this realm could reach. If he continued to get stronger, he would be in the king-ranked realm. He had not surpassed it yet, and he did not dare to do so. Breaking through the shackles of the realm in this Kurfürst Road was practically courting death. Very strong. Even Yi Shiwen had a slightly startled feeling. Boom! Wherever the sword qi passed, the sky and earth cracked, and even time and space were destroyed. It looked extremely terrifying, as if a king had descended. At this moment, Yi Shiwen also made his move. In an instant, he clenched his 5 fingers into a fist and punched out. The surrounding space was distorted to resist this earth-shattering power. It turned into the 6 paths of reincarnation and collided with Wu Zimo's stone qi. It was a head-on collision, and Wu Zimo did not back off at all. Time and space collapsed endlessly, instantly becoming chaotic. Scenes of space-time disorder were everywhere. In the entire Kurfürst heaven, many ancient matrices began to come to life in an instant. Even the will of the world and space automatically gave birth to many natural matrices, in order to resist the destructive power, to prevent the Kurfürst heaven from being smashed into pieces. They were all powers infinitely close to the king-ranked realm. When all of them were added together, it was even more terrifying than the full power of a real king-ranked realm expert. At this realm, one could almost be called a quasi-king. This was the eruption, collision, and confrontation of the strongest powers on the Kurfürst road. In order to fight for the last opportunity, everyone went crazy. Bang! With a loud sound, Wu Zimo's body shook violently, and he kept retreating. Chapter 2645. In the fight with Yi Shiwen just now, Wu Zimo was at a disadvantage. This was not a strange thing. Although he was conceited, he knew that he was not invincible. He had not reached that point yet. However, how could this person be Yi Shiwen? Hundreds of years ago, if Yi Shiwen did not use the Avicii sword at the critical moment to severely injure him and escape, he would have been defeated by Wu Zimo in one move. It was precisely because of this impression that he didn't take Yi Shiwen seriously. Last time, he was only careless and let Yi Shiwen succeed, but this time, he wouldn't let Yi Shiwen succeed so easily. He even put on the stone armor that he rarely wore. As Yi Shiwen guessed, his companion magic weapons were more than Wu Ziyu's. One for offense and one for defense, it could be said to be very balanced. He asked himself that even if Yi Shiwen were to use that unknown ominous sword, it would still be impossible for him to succeed as he had done before. However, he had never expected that Yi Shiwen didn't intend to use that ominous sword. Instead, Yi Shiwen had repelled him with just a clash of strength. This made him feel even more incredulous. However, he quickly stabilized his body and mind. He almost immediately rushed towards Yi Shiwen. His speed was extremely fast, like a ball of light. His stone sword slashed horizontally, bursting out with amazing power. This sword was really invincible. The burst of sound waves spread out in all directions. This was not the ordinary silver wolf, but the sound of the great Tao. At this moment, he looked like a sleeping god from hundreds of millions of years ago. At this moment, he seemed to have awakened and shattered everything. However, it was a pity that he could not continue his invincibility in the end because he encountered Yi Shiwen. His strength was still inferior after all. Yi Shiwen's reaction was not slow at all. He casually used the 6 paths of reincarnation fist. It could be said that many years ago, he still needed to use all his strength and even exhaust his entire body's strength to use the 6 paths of reincarnation fist. Now, he did not need to do so at all. It could be seen that Yi Shiwen's strength had improved many times over the years. It was simply unimaginable. Boom! The 6 paths of reincarnation fist and the stone sword collided again. Yi Shiwen still had the upper hand. Boom! Boom! Bang! Wu Zimo kept retreating after every collision. It was as if he had met his nemesis. There was no way for him to regain the upper hand, let alone defeat Yi Shiwen. At this moment, the battle finally attracted the attention of the other monstrous geniuses. Although Wu Zimo could be considered as a new monstrous genius, his fame was not small at all. It was as if he had accompanied Ji Renwang to become famous throughout the world. It was unknown whether he was lucky or not, but almost every time Ji Renwang was mentioned, he would be mentioned as a secondary character, mostly to highlight Ji Renwang's strength and fearsomeness. However, everyone knew very well that Wu Zimo was not as weak as many people thought he was. On the contrary, he was very strong. Very strong. Even if he was a new monstrous genius, he would not be much weaker than the veteran experts among them. However, in the continuous confrontation with Yi Shiwen, he didn't fall into a disadvantageous position at all. There were even a few bloodstains on his body. Although it was only a little bit, but it still made many people feel surprised. How is this possible? With Wu Zimo's strength, even if he doesn't have the upper hand, he shouldn't fall into such a disadvantageous position. How is this possible? I don't believe it. How can Yi Shiwen be so strong? If Wu Zimo can only be regarded as a new monstrous genius, then Yi Shiwen shouldn't even be regarded as a new monstrous genius. I only heard that Yi Shiwen had been chased for hundreds of years. I didn't think that he would be too strong. I didn't expect him to be so strong. Could it be that another Jiren Wang has appeared? Many people were secretly surprised. Even among these monstrous geniuses, Jiren Wang was a myth and a legend. Not only was he an invincible monstrous genius who entered the Kurfürst Road for the first time, but he also quickly became a powerhouse among these monstrous geniuses. No one dared to provoke him. Now that they saw Yi Shiwen, they suddenly felt as if they had encountered another Jiren Wang. A little interesting. In the distance, Jiren Wang also heard people's discussion. He turned his head and saw that Yi Shiwen had defeated Wu Zimo again and again. He didn't know if he was saying that Yi Shiwen's strength was very interesting or that this scene was very interesting. Jiren Wang, you dare to be distracted while fighting with me? I think you are really courting death. In front of Jiren Wang, there was a two-headed silver wolf. Its huge body was like a small mountain, blocking in front of Jiren Wang, not letting him advance even a little bit. Although he was not willful, in fact, he was also one of the 12 heavenly generals. He was once known as the most powerful of the 12 heavenly generals. However, later on, he retreated, not because he was defeated. Many people thought that Jiang Yi had either attained the king-ranked realm or had passed away. If not for the fact that he had reappeared this time, many people would have forgotten about him. The strength of the Celestial clan had unknowingly reached a horrifying level. Noisy, Jiren Wang said coldly. In his hand, a golden light suddenly exploded and turned into countless light threads, unexpectedly wrapping around the two-headed silver wolf. How is this possible? How is it possible that I can't break free? The two-headed silver wolf suddenly realized in horror that it was actually unable to break free from these golden threads. One must know that its strength could be said to be able to uproot mountains and rivers. It could even kill the legendary golden dragon. How could it be possible that it was unable to break free from these golden threads? What's so strange about this? Have you ever heard of the merit rope? Jiren Wang said coldly. A virtuous weapon? How could you possibly have such a legendary thing? Only those who have done great deeds to the heavens and the earth can receive some of the virtuous weapons from the heavenly Tao. As long as you refine it into a weapon, it can immediately increase the quality by several levels. The two-headed silver wolf almost immediately thought of something. What? He was already very old and could be said to be very knowledgeable. Coupled with the memories inherited from his bloodline, he could know a lot of mysteries that ordinary people could not possibly know. In his impression, the most terrifying magic treasure of the human clan was naturally the legendary heaven and earth exquisite mysterious yellow pagoda that could not be touched by anything. What he had was not refined by mixing in a little bit, but was completely refined by the legendary virtue. Its power was extraordinary, and no matter what kind of technique or ability it was, it would not be able to touch its body. The pagoda would automatically collapse, sweeping away almost everything. Even the Tian clan had suffered greatly from this magic tool. However, merit was something that could not be bought or found. Everything could only depend on the heavens. Therefore, even if many people were envious of it, they could not obtain merit. And this merit rope was naturally not as terrifying as the legendary heaven and earth exquisite mysterious yellow pagoda. However, he was not like those invincible kings and emperors in the ancient myth. It was more than enough to deal with him. He found that the meritorious rope was getting tighter and tighter, but he couldn't move at all. Soon, he was strangled to death by the meritorious rope. His body was cut into pieces by the fine strings of light in the sky. His primordial spirit was destroyed and nothing was left. Jiren Wang did not feel the slightest joy after destroying one of the famous 12 heavenly generals. It was as if he had done something insignificant. He only turned his gaze towards Yi Shiwen. The battle over there was at its most intense moment. Wu Zimo, Didn't you say that you would come to kill me today? Yi Shiwen roared. Once again, a 6 Paths of Reincarnation fist came crashing down. The wheel of the 6 Paths of Reincarnation fist was simply a millstone that could destroy the world. Wu Zimo was directly sent flying by the fist. He spat out a mouthful of blood. Some people actually saw cracks on his body. It was simply unbelievable. Was this still the majestic Wu Zimo of the past? It seems that this is the end. Today Yi Shiwen will write a new legend. And this legend will be written with Wu Zimo's blood. Many people sighed in their hearts. However, they became even more vigilant. These monstrous geniuses were known as invincible. They had indeed attracted a lot of attention. It could be said that there were many people who wanted to challenge them. If they were not careful, they might follow in their footsteps. Naturally, they also did not want this to happen. Yi Shiwen, even if I die today, you will die with me, Wu Zimo roared. He was standing there. The stone sword in his hand and the stone armor on his body were bursting with amazing light. His body was also bursting with endless light. In the sky, the law of the stone path had become so obvious that ordinary people could see it with their naked eyes. A law was constantly roaring around his body like a giant dragon. It was constantly accumulating a terrifying power. Behind him, various figures appeared one after another. Almost all of them were heroes of various races, exuding a kind of terrifying aura. Heavens, could it be that these people were all experts who were defeated by Wu Zimo? No, killed by him? Damn, I also see some familiar faces among them. How many people has he killed? Some monstrous geniuses were secretly surprised. No matter what Wu Zimo wanted to do, this scene was enough to show how powerful Wu Zimo was. It was not that he was not strong enough. It was just that Yi Shiwen was too strong. This had become a well-known fact. Boom! In an instant, these figures shattered one after another. Then, they turned into a torrent and rushed into Wu Zimo's body. At this moment, Wu Zimo became incomparably powerful. He gritted his teeth and his face was ashen. It seemed that he was enduring some kind of extreme pain. However, his expression was extremely excited and ferocious. Chapter 2646. Wu Zimo grinned ferociously. His body was undergoing a terrifying transformation. It was as if he was absorbing all the essence in the world. He was devouring the essence of all the opponents he had killed in the past. He had kept these essences and had never used them before. He had originally planned to use them when he broke through to the king-ranked realm, but it seemed that there was no way to delay it any longer. If he continued to delay, he might not have a future. Every one of these geniuses had lived for many years. For ordinary sages at the peak of the king-ranked realm, they had no way to break through that barrier. However, these geniuses were different. They had found a way to break through over a long period of time. It was only for the opportunity on the Kurfürst Road that they did not choose to break through. Once they had made up their minds, there would always be a way to break through. This was where they were different from others, and where even those old antiques could not compare. After this battle, whether I am willing or not, I will break through to the king-ranked realm. I will use your life as a sacrifice for all this. I have had enough of all these years. I want everyone to know my name. I want everyone to tremble when they hear my name. Wu Zimo's aura was becoming stronger, stronger, and stronger. Although he had been suppressing it all this time to prevent himself from breaking through to the king-ranked realm and being killed by the Kurfürst heaven, it had climbed to another limit. Everyone present was shocked. That was because those geniuses had almost reached the pinnacle of the sage plane, and they could not go any further than that. Once they went beyond that, they would not be able to remain at the pinnacle of the sage plane, and they would probably break through to the king-ranked realm. This was the situation that Wu Zimo was in now. After this battle, no matter who won or lost, Wu Zimo would have to face the heavenly tribulation of the king-ranked realm. He would not be able to escape. The real danger was here. As one's cultivation and strength continued to increase, they would soon be unable to suppress the growth of their cultivation. The longer they dragged it out, the more dangerous it would be. That was why these geniuses did not dare to use this move, even though they knew that this might be their last chance to fight for the opportunity to become a king-ranked realm. If they were not careful, they might be killed on the Kurfürst road. That would be terrible. However, even they had to admit that the power of this move was too great. Wu Zimo's strength continued to rise to the point that even they felt a little fearful. After using this move, Wu Zimo had already surpassed them. Wu Zimo had a hideous look on his face. He was in extreme pain as he charged towards Yi Shiwen. His body exuded a terrifying aura. His combat power had risen to the extreme. Boom! The most terrifying battle took place. Chaos spread out completely at this moment, petrified by the stone aura. It could almost affect the legendary time and space. A single strike had shaken the sturdy Kurfürst heaven. Such power had surpassed the limits. In fact, everyone could clearly sense that a dignified will was awakening, as if it had been provoked. Everyone's hearts tightened, because they all thought of the most terrifying legend. According to the legend, if a king-ranked expert dared to enter the Kurfürst road, the will of the Kurfürst road would be stimulated and awakened, and then the invader would be killed. The will that they were feeling now should be the terrifying will that guarded the Kurfürst road and could kill a king-ranked expert. And all of this was obviously caused by Wu Zimo. His cultivation level was close to the king-ranked realm, and he had reached an extremely dangerous level. It had been too long since anyone dared to challenge the boundary of the king-bestowed realm on the Kurfürst road. Therefore, even the monstrous talents and the old antiques did not know how terrifying it would be if the legendary will were to awaken. They were secretly annoyed. What if that will regarded them as Wu Zimo's accomplices and eliminated them together? They could not help but feel nervous. Even the experts of the heavenly race, who were setting up the array, were terrified. There were too many legends about that will. They could not help but feel nervous. However, Wu Zimo did not care about that at this moment. With a strike, he awakened the will of the Kurfürst heaven and attacked Yi Shiwen directly. Boom! The boundless starry sky seemed to have exploded in an instant. It exploded all around Yi Shiwen's body. It had actually broken Yi Shiwen's body-protecting golden body. This was the first time that Wu Zimo had broken Yi Shiwen's defense. While everyone was shocked by Wu Zimo's strength that was close to the limit, they were also shocked by Yi Shiwen's terrifying strength. Even if it was them, if they did not raise their battle strength to the limit, they might be seriously injured in a single strike. However, Yi Shiwen was only forced to use his protective golden body. In fact, he was not seriously injured. How could they not be shocked? It was a miracle. At this moment, they finally understood why Wu Zimo had to release all of his strength at such a critical moment. It was not that he had lost his mind, but he had been forced to the limit by Yi Shiwen. If he did not release his ultimate strength, he would definitely not be a match for Yi Shiwen. If it were them, they would also have to do the same. This was a kind of helplessness. Many people were shocked. Were the newcomers so terrifying now? Even Ji Renwang, who killed his way into the Kurfürst road, did not seem to be so powerful. Not only did he enter the Kurfürst road for the first time, but he could also suppress the monstrous geniuses. This was no longer something that could be explained by extraordinary talent. It was simply abnormal. Yi Shiwen, stop struggling. You will not be a match for me. Although Wu Zimo's brows were slightly furrowed because he did not seriously injure Yi Shiwen with one strike, he was extremely confident in his heart. It had skyrocketed to an unprecedented level. How could a mere Yi Shiwen be a match for him? Even he himself was afraid of his current state. It was a feeling that he had never felt before. This is the result after you released all of your strength? I think it is nothing more than this, Yi Shiwen said lightly. In the face of absolute strength, being stubborn is useless. Wu Zimo sneered, as if he had seen the most ridiculous thing in the world. Boom! In an instant, the sword in the stone unleashed a dazzling stone luminescence, which pierced through the sky. The stars in the sky shook violently and turned dim. It was as though their brilliance had been snatched away. The resulting shock waves reduced some of the protruding mountain ranges to nothingness. Fortunately, the battle between the two was completely on the edge. Otherwise, such a level of battle was enough to cause public anger. Human Dao Fist. Yi Shiwen blasted out a human Dao world with one punch, contending with Wu Zimo, who had already turned into a stone Qi world. The fierce confrontation between the two worlds was simply unimaginable. Bang! With a loud roar, Yi Shiwen's human Dao world was shattered. Although the quality of his world was extremely high, it was forcibly broken by Wu Zimo. The remaining stone Qi did not slow down and fell on Yi Shiwen's body. However, it was completely absorbed by the bloody radiance that emerged from his body. At this time, Yi Shiwen did not seem to hide anymore. Tianyuan mirror directly flew out and enveloped him in it. This blow seemed to have shaken even Yi Shiwen. His brows slightly wrinkled. Not bad, but is this all you've got? If this is all you've got, then you can't beat me, Yi Shiwen said indifferently. Pretending to be mysterious and bluffing, Wu Zimo only sneered. In his opinion, Yi Shiwen was just bluffing. Even a king-ranked master would not dare to underestimate his attack, let alone a mere sage in the middle stage. It was already nature-defying for a sage in the middle stage to be able to perform to such an extent. It was impossible for him to be stronger. However, he could also feel that the bursting power in his body was burning brighter and brighter, making it impossible for him to delay any longer. With a loud roar, he charged towards Yi Shiwen. Boom! 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 The battle between the two went all the way from the ground into the void, leaving the ground of the Kurfürst heaven. The stars in the sky fell in batches, making the sun and moon lose their light. Wu Zimo's sword Qi swept across the sky, turning hundreds and thousands of stars into ashes. Yi Shiwen's fist will pierced through the sky, and another large part of the universe collapsed. Both sides seemed to have exploded to the extreme. Under the support of such terrifying power, both sides seemed to have gone mad. But relatively speaking, everyone could see that Wu Zimo, who had already gone mad, was a little stronger. His combat power had exploded to the peak, while Yi Shiwen seemed to have used up all his strength. Had he really reached his limit? Although Yi Shiwen was strong, he had not reached the peak of the sage plane. This kind of strength, at times, had its limit. Just like Wu Zimo's methods, he could not reach them. This was the difference between the planes. Sometimes it seemed that one could challenge those of a higher plane, but the methods that those of a higher plane had were something that those of a lower plane would never know. The battle between the two continued. Wu Zimo's strength continued to grow as he continued to make breakthroughs, and his attacks became more and more frenzied. It was because he knew that he did not have much time left. And everyone else also knew that Wu Zimo's remaining time was extremely important. As long as Yi Shiwen could hold on, this time, Wu Zimo would not be able to do anything to him. In the future, when Yi Shiwen also entered the king-ranked realm, it would be the time for both sides to truly decide who was the winner and settle their grudges. At that time, it would be a battle between two invincible kings. However, this was what they thought. Yi Shiwen clearly did not think so. Wu Zimo, is this your limit? What a disappointment! Chapter 2647. Wu Zimo, is this your limit? I'm so disappointed. Yi Shiwen panted slightly after breaking the remaining sword aura with a punch, looking a little embarrassed. In the battle just now, his spiritual power was consumed extremely quickly. He was only in the Sage Realm middle stage, but he had to exert combat power beyond the peak of the sage realm. One could imagine how huge the consumption of spiritual power was. If it were not for the phoenix regeneration technique, he would not have been able to hold on. Even the support of the phoenix regeneration technique was not unrelated to him being able to exert such combat power. Otherwise, these geniuses would not have been able to fight against those of a higher level as easily as eating and drinking. But they were defeated by Yi Shiwen. If it were not for the invincible divine art, they would not have been able to do it. Humph, no matter how tough you are, it's useless, Wu Zimo sneered. Compared to before, Yi Shiwen was extremely embarrassed. He seemed to be able to see victory waving to him. Finally, he could eradicate this scourge. He had tried his best. If he could not even kill Yi Shiwen like this, then he would no longer have the confidence to face Yi Shiwen in the future. Today is the day you die, and I will be the judge. Wu Zimo was extremely confident, but just when he was about to attack again, the opposite Yi Shiwen had completely changed. Yi Shiwen sneered and said, "Is that really the case? Since that's the case, it's just as you said. This is the final battle, and there's no need for me to hide my strength. I'll let you see the gap between us. What monstrous genius that surpasses the limits. In my eyes, it's nothing." Continue to be stubborn. Before Wu Zimo's voice trailed off, he saw that Yi Shiwen seemed to have released some shackles. The aura on his body had obviously climbed to the limit, but now it continued to climb at an even more amazing speed and constantly strengthened. The terrifying waves set off from his body even directly blasted a huge hole in the sky. Countless stars were just brushed by the waves released by him and turned into nothingness. At this moment, Yi Shiwen seemed to have become the supreme emperor between heaven and earth, dominating everything. All the coercion was released to the limit. This change immediately attracted everyone's attention, even in the midst of a fierce battle. This was because this aura was too terrifying. Even with their strength, they trembled. It even surpassed Wu Zimo, who had released his strength to the peak. They had not felt this way in a long time. It was almost as if they were about to face a true king-ranked formidable martial artist. What shocked countless people even more was that Yi Shiwen had actually concealed his strength. He hadn't released all of his strength as they had previously thought. Even if his strength was already above theirs, it still wasn't his limit. So, what was his limit? Everyone was shocked. For the first time, these geniuses who had their eyes on the top of their heads felt terrified. They realized that they were not at the peak of their level, and this was the most terrifying thing. For hundreds of thousands of years, or even millions of years, they had always felt that while they had not broken through to the king-ranked plane, they had definitely reached the pinnacle of the sage plane. It was only now that they realized how laughable they were. They had been frogs in a well. If Yi Shiwen had really reached the pinnacle of the sage plane, then perhaps they would feel better. But at this moment, Yi Shiwen was only in the middle stage of the sage plane. Even they could see this. A sage plane in the middle stage had actually reached the pinnacle that they, who were in the middle stage of the sage plane, could not reach. What a joke! This was simply the funniest joke in the past millions of years. Whatever pride and self-esteem they had held onto in the past, it was as if they had been slapped hard in the face. It turned out that the people who had been frogs in a well were actually themselves. Some of them even had their Tao heart wavering. The worldview that they had always believed in had collapsed, and there were even signs of qi deviation. At their level of cultivation, it was almost as difficult as ascending to the heavens to have qi deviation. Their willpower had long been as firm as a rock and could not be shaken. But now, such an extreme situation had happened, which shocked them. Interesting. Although it was the same words, this time, Jiren Wang wasn't as relaxed as before. He also felt a strong pressure. He had a huge secret on him, so he was confident that he was above ordinary geniuses. But now, when he saw Yi Shiwen, he suddenly felt a sense of amazement. Even if you look at the long river of history, I am afraid that those who can reach this level are very rare. What geniuses! In his eyes, perhaps they are really not worth mentioning. The people he wants to compare himself with are those who have entered the enlightenment plane in countless years. That is what he is chasing after. Ji Renwang murmured to himself. It is coming soon, Yi Shiwen. I hope you do not disappoint me. Otherwise, it will be very difficult for me. Some things must be done. Since the heavens have given you such powerful talents and opportunities, there are some things that should be shouldered. Different from the shock of the others, he was still calm, as if there were still some tricks that he had not used. Yi Shiwen could feel the power after releasing the cultivation armor. It was getting stronger and stronger, and he firmly controlled it in his hands. This was different from Wu Zimo's power. Wu Zimo's power came from devouring the essence and blood of his former opponents. There were too many things that he could not control. Yi Shiwen's power came from his own cultivation. He just suppressed it and did not release it. Just like Wu Zimo before, he could already feel the majestic will of the Kurfürst heaven. It seemed to be a warning, and he could understand the meaning behind it. It was clearly telling him not to act recklessly. Once he exceeded a certain limit, the will would instantly erupt with a powerful force and obliterate him. But he was not worried because he knew that although he was infinitely close to the strength of the King realm, he was still a little bit away. Why are you so strong? Wu Zimo actually began to feel a little nervous. He never thought that Yi Shiwen not only hid his strength, but also to this extent. It was simply subverting his imagination. Do you really think that I can't beat you? This is just a test, Yi Shiwen said calmly. Indeed, as Yi Shiwen said, he was just testing Wu Zimo's strength. It should be said that he was using Wu Zimo as an example to test the limits of these demon prodigies. Know yourself and know your enemy, and you will always be victorious. Yi Shiwen, who had tried to break through to the King realm once and failed, knew better than them what the strength of that realm represented. It was far beyond their imagination. That time, when he failed to break through to the King realm, it seemed like he did not gain anything. But in reality, it allowed him to improve further and reach a level that no one had ever reached before. Otherwise, when he faced Wu Zimo's strength, he would be flustered and would not be able to fight back. The so-called supreme, the so-called invincible, one is enough. This path is too narrow, it cannot accommodate others, Yi Shiwen said calmly. This sentence completely shocked many demon prodigies. If Yi Shiwen had said something like this before, they would have scolded him for being arrogant. Now, for some reason, they agreed with him. It seemed like they had been trapped in this realm for too long and had already accepted that there were others who were on par with them. They could no longer find that invincible mentality they had in the past. Many people faintly felt that their state of mind had broken through, and their cultivation levels were getting restless. They actually felt like they were about to break through to the King realm. If this was any other time, it would have been fine. However, this was not the right time to break through. They cursed under their breaths and hurriedly suppressed their cultivation levels. At this moment, they also understood Wu Zimo's helplessness. At that stage, there were some things that could not be helped. Impossible, I don't believe it! Wu Zimo suddenly roared as he charged forward. The stone sword that he was waving became tens of millions of feet long as it slashed down viciously. The galaxy trembled, and a huge crack appeared in the sky of the universe. It was extremely frightening. Bang! His attack landed viciously, but it was caught by Yi Shiwen with one hand. Yi Shiwen could not break through his attack. Yi Shiwen exerted a bit of force, and this 10 million feet long sword light disintegrated inch by inch in front of everyone's eyes. The entire Milky Way collapsed along with the sword light's disintegration. It looked incomparably terrifying. This is the end. Use the stone sword that you are best at to leave. Yi Shiwen's shout turned into a terrifying sound wave that spread out in all directions, annihilating countless stars. The whole scene looked incomparably terrifying. At this moment, a stone sword had appeared in Yi Shiwen's hand. It was Wu Ziyu's stone sword. Compared to the stone sword in Wu Zimo's hand, it was still slightly inferior. However, in Yi Shiwen's hand, a light that was even more dazzling than the one in Wu Zimo's hand erupted. It was as if all the limits had appeared. Hua! The sword light slashed out, and the sky instantly shattered, engulfing everything. Countless stars shattered, and slashed fiercely on Wu Zimo's body. Wu Zimo wanted to struggle, but there was no way. He only felt that his body could not move at all. He was locked by a terrifying will. Boom! The sword light slashed on Wu Zimo's body, and immediately caused a terrifying explosion. In this explosion, Wu Zimo was slashed into nothingness. There was not a bit of flesh and blood left. It was as if this person did not exist in this world at all. In an instant, the nothingness of the sword destroyed everything. Yi Shiwen really used the stone sword that Wu Zimo was best at to annihilate him. Everyone was shocked, but suddenly at this moment, a voice suddenly shouted, "Not good, the opportunity to become an emperor has arrived." Chapter 2648. Everyone was still immersed in this sword. This sword was too frightening. Even they could feel an extremely frightening threat. It was a direct threat to their hearts. This feeling was different from the pressure of a king-ranked martial artist. It was a completely new kind of pressure. While they were shocked, they were also extremely fearful of Yi Shiwen. If it was any other day, it would be fine. Once they broke through to the king-ranked realm, it would be a brand new start. They would not lose confidence. However, this concerned the opportunity to become a martial emperor. To a large extent, the strength of one now depended on the strength of one's strength. Therefore, in everyone's reaction, they were extremely fearful of Yi Shiwen. They could not allow him to act recklessly. Yi Shiwen also felt the change in their emotions. If this went on, he was likely to become everyone's enemy. Even if he did not have much ambition for the opportunity to become a martial emperor. However, people had to believe it first. The reason why he was here now was mainly because no matter who obtained the so-called opportunity to become a martial emperor, it could not fall into the hands of the heavenly race. Otherwise, it would undoubtedly be a huge disaster. "Oh no, the opportunity to become a martial emperor has arrived!" A loud shout came from afar. Everyone looked over, only to see that the sky seemed to have been torn apart by a terrifying force, and a huge pillar of light shot down, directly into the great formation of the Tian clan experts. In the great array, a silver-haired handsome young man stood in this huge light beam. He opened his arms as if he was welcoming the arrival of something. Then, a ball of emerald green light was slowly torn out of the crack along the huge light beam. It began to fall slowly, and was about to enter the body of the silver-haired handsome young man. Even if they had not eaten pork, they had seen a pig run. At the same time, the 9 thrones began to emit intense and dazzling light. 8 powerful figures that made people despair appeared in the sky. They seemed to be protecting the ball of emerald green light. "Kill, we cannot let the heavenly race get it. Get out of my way." Instantly, the elites of the various races went completely crazy. If they had held back some strength before, they no longer had the slightest bit of hesitation. What was even more terrifying than the opportunity of choosing an emperor being snatched away by others was that this opportunity of choosing an emperor was obtained by an expert of the Tian clan. It wouldn't be long before the Tian clan produced another invincible monarch who would rule the world. When that time came, once the exiled heavenly race returned, it would be a disaster. "Finally, you are here." Suddenly, Ji Renwang walked out from the crowd. Before the other heavenly race experts dared to stop him, a shocking light appeared in his hand. A green lotus was released from his hand. This green lotus carried an unparalleled and indescribable majesty. It bloomed and turned into a terrifying current that rushed out. But to everyone's surprise, the target of this green lotus was not the silver-haired young man from the heavenly race, but the ball of green light in the sky. Everyone knew that it was the opportunity to become a martial emperor. Therefore, everyone's target was the silver-haired young man. No one's eyes were looking at the ball of green light. Because even so, the silver-haired young man could not obtain the opportunity to become a martial emperor, and they could not obtain the opportunity to become a martial emperor either. In this case, what was the purpose of their hard work for tens of thousands of years? This terrifying current swept out. In the middle of the green lotus, it directly turned into a golden sword. This sharp sword emitted an extremely powerful aura. It was the aura of the world's ruler. Everywhere it passed, it instantly swept out. It had almost exceeded the limit that the Kurfürst heaven could bear. It triggered the arrival of the terrifying will. However, it could not stop the current and was directly swept away. This was unimaginable. It should be known that if the will was angry, even a king-ranked expert would die in its hands. Now, it was actually swept away by the sword light of the green lotus. Why do I clearly feel the will of two peerless martial emperors from this sword lotus? How can this be? The frightening will that was spreading out made these demon-level martial artists feel an urge to kneel down. This was unbelievable to them. Given their strength and abilities, even if they were to face a legendary king-ranked martial artist, they would not be in such a sorry state. What's more, Jiang Yi's will alone could force them to kneel. This was probably only something that could be done by a martial emperor. Everyone was very clear that although Ji Renwang had the bloodline of the Ji clan, he was actually a disciple of the martial arts sect. Therefore, it was not strange that he had the aura of any peerless martial emperor. After all, there would always be some methods that could achieve such an effect. However, how to have the will of two peerless martial emperors was something that no one could imagine. Although this was theoretically possible, it was only in theory. Once two peerless martial emperors met, wouldn't their auras clash? However, Ji Renwang had done it. It was as if he had used some ingenious method to accomplish it. Ji Renwang, what are you doing? Everyone was furious. No matter how they dealt with the silver-haired young man from the Tian clan, it was to fight for the opportunity to become a martial emperor. However, if the opportunity to become a martial emperor was destroyed, what was the point of them fighting for? What is your martial arts sect trying to do? The last time the opportunity to become a martial emperor appeared, you were beaten back by the Qin emperor. Now, you want to destroy our opportunity to become a martial emperor. What are you trying to do? One of the old antiques was instantly enraged. Back then, he had also participated in the Kurfürst Road. At that time, he had seen with his own eyes the terrifying scene of the Qin emperor beating back the Kurfürst sect. He could never forget that scene. It was like a nightmare. Even after countless years, he could not let go of the knot in his heart. Later on, the Qin emperor soared to the sky and finally became a martial emperor. From his point of view, his slow progress was related to the Qin emperor and the martial arts sect. At this time, seeing Ji Renwang's actions, he was instantly enraged. However, he was not the only one at the scene. Almost everyone was enraged. The experts of the Tian clan were also completely crazy. Kill him, we can't let him go crazy. The experts of the Tian clan shouted one after another. However, it was to no avail. They could only watch as the huge sword lotus swept across the sky and directly bombarded the opportunity to become a martial emperor in the sky. How dare you! Everyone seemed to have heard a loud roar coming from the sky. The reason why it sounded like was because this voice seemed to be directly imprinted in their hearts, and it wasn't coming from someone else. Everyone's hearts shook, yet they saw that the 8 extremely terrifying figures on the 8 thrones had suddenly appeared in front of the torrent of sword lotuses, and they blocked their path. The aura of these 8 powerful figures had risen to the peak. Indistinctly, they could see that they were already superior to many of the monstrous geniuses. They even had powerful strength and aura that even the experts of the King realm did not have. They had completely surpassed the limit of strength on the Kurfürst road. It was as if something had been stimulated and awakened. This was a terrifying power. Boom! The first to attack was one of the wild beasts. One could barely see that he was crawling on four legs. It did not look like a beast, but it did not look like one. However, it looked like a combination of many beasts. In an instant, 10,000 beasts roared and turned into a torrent that welcomed the sword lotus. Boom! The two sides directly collided. The terrifying power set off a wild wave. Just as the shock wave was about to hit the silver-haired expert of the Tian clan below, another figure made a move. He casually brought up an ancient formation and actually turned the terrifying collision into nothingness, protecting the people of the Tian clan. That ball of dark green light was still slowly descending. Everyone could see that any one of these 8 figures had unimaginable power. Many people guessed in their hearts that they could not be the 8 invincible experts who had obtained the opportunity. If that was the case, it could be explained. After all, they were the emperors who once dominated the heavens and the realms. Usually, the appearance of one of them was already terrifying enough, let alone so many of them appearing together. If that was the case, then everything was serious. It seemed that the previous supreme experts were really going to join forces to protect this silver-haired young man of the Tian clan. Could it be that he was the chosen successor of the opportunity on the Kurfürst road in this generation? It should be known that there had never been such a situation in the past. Basically, it could be said that everyone relied on their own strength. Only the strongest person who won would be able to take away the opportunity. This was also why everyone was so afraid of Yi Shiwen. From the strength that he had displayed, Yi Shiwen was undoubtedly above everyone else. It was just that now, if the opportunity of the Kurfürst road had a spirit and chosen its own successor, then everything would be completely different. It was just that no one knew how the experts of the Tian clan did it. Boom! The sword lotus vaguely transformed into 2 invincible figures as well, and they charged towards the 8 phantoms. The 8 figures stood in the void, and the terrifying laws of destruction could be seen everywhere. The sky collapsed and the earth cracked. If the silver-haired young man of the Tian clan was not under the protection of layers of formations, he would have long been turned into nothingness. Yi Shiwen, are you still not going to make a move? This opportunity of the Kurfürst road is simply a disaster. You must not let it come into being. Suddenly, Ji Renwang saw the 10 figures fighting in the sky. That power had already exceeded the limit. He suddenly became a little anxious and shouted at Yi Shiwen. Chapter 2649. Yi Shiwen was also stunned. He didn't expect that Ji Renwang would look for him because he was also stunned. He could understand that Ji Renwang didn't want the heavenly race to obtain the opportunity to become an emperor, but how could he directly destroy the opportunity to become an emperor? If he hadn't already figured it out, he would have gone crazy at this time. Once the opportunity to become an emperor was destroyed, it would truly be the end of the road for everyone. Over the years, only Emperor Qin relied on his own strength to prove his Tao. The others were more or less related to the opportunity to become an emperor. One could imagine how many people were eyeing this opportunity to become an emperor. Why? Yi Shiwen quickly asked. It's a long story, but I'm not very clear about it. I only know that my mission is to destroy this opportunity to become an emperor. This is not only my idea, but also related to the Yellow Emperor, the Qin Emperor, and the 2 Emperors. Ji Renwang couldn't help but smile bitterly because there were many things that even he himself wasn't very clear about. Although Ji Renwang had said nothing for a long time, but Yi Shiwen's heart had tightened, because he had mentioned 2 emperors, and either one of them had once shaken the world, and had created a supreme and illustrious existence. Both of them had once dominated a region, and were invincible. Both of them had once saved the weak human race. The Yellow Emperor and the Ji family had brought the human race to glory for the first time. The Qin Emperor, on the other hand, had brought the human race back to glory. Even now, he was remembered by all. What was this opportunity to become an emperor? It was able to make the two emperors make such a unanimous decision. Even a supreme genius like Ji Ren had to carry such a mission. There must be something that Yi Shiwen didn't know about, so he didn't dare to look down on it. It's good that it's destroyed. Although Yi Shiwen didn't know what the opportunity to become an emperor was, he had already decided not to take this path. Either he couldn't reach the Tao, or he could rely on his own strength to fight his way out. However, he also understood that if the opportunity to become an emperor fell into the hands of others, then it was very likely that an invincible emperor would be cultivated. At that time, it would undoubtedly be a terrible threat to him. In that case, it would be better to destroy this opportunity so that no one could get it, and they would return to the same starting line. Up in the sky, the 10 powerful phantoms were fighting. However, it was clear that the 8 phantoms from the 8 thrones were being beaten back by the phantoms of the Qin Emperor and the Yellow Emperor. The 8 phantoms working together could only barely fight the Qin Emperor and the Yellow Emperor to a draw. The gap between the two sides was unimaginable. Yi Shiwen's heart shuddered. Could it be that there was such a huge gap between those who reached the Tao with their own strength and those who reached the Tao with the so-called opportunity? Both the Yellow Emperor and the Qin Emperor could fight one-on-one. Even if he didn't understand the matters of that realm, he could still see the strength of the Yellow Emperor and the Qin Emperor. It was far from what the others could compare with. This made him even more determined that he couldn't rely on this so-called opportunity. Since you are a scourge, then don't blame me. Yi Shiwen took a step forward. He held the Avici sword in his hand and slashed down fiercely. Chains of principles appeared around the sword light and entwined around it. It brought forth a dreadful sword rainbow and slashed horizontally. It looked extremely terrifying. The entire Kurfürst heaven was shaking violently, and the will that had been threatening Yi Shiwen didn't appear. It seemed to have gone to deal with the phantoms of the Yellow Emperor and the Qin Emperor wholeheartedly. It actually didn't pose any threat to Yi Shiwen, allowing him to attack freely. This feeling made Yi Shiwen feel extremely carefree. Everyone was shocked. When he was just about to attack, everyone had already noticed that even at the most intense moment, they didn't forget to pay a part of their attention to Yi Shiwen, lest he snatch away the opportunity to reach the Tao. Now that they saw this attack, they couldn't help but reveal a completely shocked expression. The power of this attack had even surpassed the Sage realm, and it had already broken into the King-ranked realm. This was something that they could easily sense. It was so terrifying. What exactly was that peerless murderous weapon in his hand? Some people had also heard of the legends about Yi Shiwen. It was said that he had a peerless murderous weapon in his hand. Back then, when his strength was far inferior to his current strength, he used it to severely injure Wu Zimo. At first, this legend seemed to be true, but in the battle just now, they didn't even see Yi Shiwen use the Avici sword, so they naturally thought that the legend was just a legend, and everything was just a rumor. Now it seemed that the legend was definitely not a legend, and it was true, and that peerless murderous weapon really did exist. It was just that Yi Shiwen had hidden his strength before and didn't use his full strength. Or rather, Wu Zimo actually couldn't make him use his full strength. It could only be said that Yi Shiwen was really powerful to the extreme. And what shocked them even more was that Yi Shiwen actually wanted to destroy the Kurfürst's opportunity. This attack was actually aimed directly at the Kurfürst's opportunity. Everyone was going crazy. What was going on? These humans were really going crazy. If it was just to fight for the Kurfürst's opportunity, it would be fine. But they were actually fighting to destroy this Kurfürst's opportunity. Why was this happening? Only some rational people seemed to vaguely think of something. It seemed that in the ancient legends, the Kurfürst's road was simply a huge trap, a trap set up by an invincible person. It was just that as time passed, and because more and more people achieved the way, over time, such legends slowly became nonsense. Could it be that Ji Renwang and Yi Shiwen, the two human geniuses who had once created miracles, were actually fighting because of this? But in the eyes of others, these two guys were clearly trying to destroy the opportunity that others had, even if their own chances were small. They would rather everyone else not have such an opportunity, and this had completely angered everyone. Rumble! The blood-red sword aura slashed into the array formation of the heavenly experts. Although the defense of the array formation was very strong, this attack had already surpassed the Sage Realm. With Yi Shiwen's full strength, even the destructive power of the King-ranked realm had broken through. The entire array formation instantly cracked, and a huge force fell down along the pattern of the array. Many heavenly experts did not even have time to react and were pierced by this force, and then turned into a mist of blood. In one breath, the entire array formation was destroyed by half, and the remaining blood-red sword aura did not slow down at all. It crashed right into the Kurfürst's opportunity that had just fallen. Bang! Visible to the naked eye, a small part of the Kurfürst's opportunity was actually cut off. That ball of Kurfürst's opportunity seemed to have a life of its own, and it began to wriggle as if it was convulsing in pain. Everyone was dumbfounded. The power of this attack was too great, and it had even exceeded their expectations. This was the power of the king-ranked realm. How could it appear in the Kurfürst's road? This was not logical. Where was that willpower? As for the 10 powerful beings who were still fighting in the distance, they had already forgotten about them. Those terrifying beings were essentially beyond the scope of their understanding. Only Yi Shiwen's attack made them feel that it was not logical. Huff, huff, huff. Yi Shiwen kept panting, and his eyes were a little red. A fierce aura constantly wrapped around his body. He had already used this attack to its fullest extent, and he had mustered all the skills in his body to the peak. Even though he had reached the king-ranked realm, he still could not truly destroy that Kurfürst's opportunity. But at the same time, this attack also allowed him to truly come into contact with the power of the king-ranked realm. The mysterious space madly deduced, and he actually managed to deduce a lot of information about the king-ranked realm. His mind was clear, and he was actually showing signs of breaking through. Once he broke through to the late stage of the Sage Realm, his battle prowess would truly break through to the king-ranked realm. However, he knew that this was not the time for him to break through. Even though he was already prepared, the power of the Sword of Avicii still shocked him when he used his full strength. His initial guess that the Sword of Avicii was a top-notch divine weapon was probably wrong. The 10,000 spell roulette was a top-notch divine weapon, and even he did not have such a hard time using it. The power of the Sword of Avicii was above that of the 10,000 spell roulette, and he could not even use the true power of the Sword of Avicii. He would probably have to truly break through to the king-ranked realm before he could unlock its profound meaning. That ball of Kurfürst's opportunity was cut in half by Yi Shiwen's sword aura, but the remaining part was still approaching the silver-haired young man. It seemed like it was attracted by something, and its speed began to increase. Not far away, Ji Renwang still wanted to rush over, but it was useless. Unbeknownst to him, several of the 12 heavenly generals had already surrounded him. It was impossible for him to break through in a short period of time. Yi Shiwen, it's all up to you now. Ji Renwang transmitted his voice to Yi Shiwen as he launched a crazy attack. Yi Shiwen smiled bitterly and said, "Damn, do I still have to do this kind of work at a time like this?" In the Tianyuan mirror, countless celestial sources began to burn, turning into monstrous magic power that poured into Yi Shiwen's body, allowing him to quickly recover. No matter why I have to destroy it, its existence itself is a threat to me, so die. Yi Shiwen sneered, took a step forward, and directly rushed out. The will in the sky began to appear again, and even Yi Shiwen could feel it. Yi Shiwen, even if you want to mess around, you have to know when to stop. Suddenly, many figures blocked in front of Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen looked carefully, and who else could it be other than the monstrous geniuses of the various clans? At this time, they were actually standing on the opposite side of him. He wanted to face these monstrous geniuses alone. Chapter 2650. At this moment, Yi Shiwen had become everyone's enemy. If he was only going to kill the silver-haired Heavenly Clan youth, he might be able to get help from others in secret. However, he was going to destroy the opportunity to become an emperor. Everyone might have realized that this opportunity to become an emperor had almost become a demon in their hearts. When they talked about something for hundreds of thousands of years, or even millions of years, it would become a kind of demon in their hearts. As if it had a special attraction, these peerless evildoers seemed to be controlled by something. It penetrated their hearts little by little. Only a few of them could comprehend it on their own. It seems that I have angered everyone. A smile appeared on Yi Shiwen's face. However, his eyes were fixed on the Emperor Realm opportunities that were constantly falling down. He was a little anxious in his heart. The speed at which the Emperor's opportunity fell was extremely slow. It was as if it was being repelled by a terrifying force. It was as if there was some willpower preventing the Emperor's opportunity from falling. It seemed that it was not going so smoothly. It was not like what he had thought at the beginning. It seemed that everything was prepared. It seemed that there were still many Emperor's opportunity that was not pleasing to the eye. However, it seemed that it had already involved the invincible figures since ancient times. The battle and layout of that level was not something that he could participate in now. That's right, Yi Shiwen. It's not too late if you stop now. At this moment, a huge demonic eagle flew down. It was a ferocious bird with a green face and fangs. Its whole body was covered in demonic flames. It flew over. If you want to kill the remnants of the Heavenly Clan, I will help you. Otherwise, don't blame me for being impolite. Yi Shiwen stopped smiling and said coldly, If I say that I want to kill both of them, how impolite will you be? Even I want to see it. At this moment, he recognized the origin of this demon eagle. It was rumored that in the demon world, there was a race of demon birds called the demon eagle. The name was very ordinary because the ancestor who had created this race was a demon eagle that was very common in the demon world. Later on, no one knew what kind of opportunity he had encountered, but he actually became unstoppable and became one of the most formidable martial artists of his generation. Later on, he even battled with the Azura Demon Lord, who had yet to attain Tao, for many years. The Azura Demon Lord was one of his strongest opponents, and he was almost extremely powerful. Later on, they even fought until the king-ranked realm without a clear winner. Later on, the Azura Demon King had another opportunity to achieve Tao. He killed one of his main opponents, the demonic eagle old ancestor, and unified the demon realm. However, this race did not go extinct because of this. Instead, it became one of the few royal races in the demon beast race. Its reputation was not inferior to the 8 royal races of the demon race. This demonic eagle was the youngest son of the demonic eagle old ancestor, Ingbummy. Because his father had been killed by the Azura Demon King, he had been brooding over it. He wanted to obtain this opportunity to become a martial emperor so that he could revive his race and rule the world. This race was also very powerful. Among the ferocious birds in the demon realm, they were almost the best. Originally, they could only be considered an ordinary bloodline. After the demonic eagle old ancestor, they became a powerful bloodline. The strength of their ancestors would also affect their descendants in the bloodline. No one was born noble. Ingbummy turned into a middle-aged man. His aura was soaring, and he had the aura of a king descending. His father was an invincible king who could go against the Azura Demon King. His brothers had also entered the king realm a long time ago. If he had not been so obsessed with this opportunity to become a martial emperor, he would have entered the king realm a long time ago. He could be said to be one of the strongest remaining monstrous talents on the road to becoming a martial emperor. He was one of the most ancient existences. Naturally, he had his pride. There were also legends that said that Ing Bummy was actually from the same generation as the Phoenix King. However, the Phoenix King had already retired from the road to become a martial emperor countless years ago. He had made a name for himself outside and achieved the title of Phoenix King. Ing Bummy was still bitterly searching for the opportunity to become a martial emperor. He had missed a few opportunities. He was the only person who had seen the opportunity to become a martial emperor several times. Because of this, he had witnessed many emperors obtaining the Tao. His heart was even crazier and more obsessed with this opportunity to become a martial emperor. At this moment, his eyes were completely red. It seemed like if Yi Shiwen said one more word, he would kill him. Junior, don't be too arrogant. Since ancient times, I've seen too many arrogant people who tried to go against the great powers of the world. In the end, they only ended up being crushed to pieces. Ing Bummy's eyes flashed as he looked at Yi Shiwen. His ferocious expression was overflowing. In fact, if Yi Shiwen's ferocious performance hadn't shocked him, he would have already attacked him. As one of the few old seniors present, he was even older than many of their ancestors. The pride in his heart naturally couldn't be compared to ordinary people. At the same time, after experiencing the opportunity to become a martial emperor a few times, he was even more anxious. This was his last chance. If anyone wanted to take away his last chance, he would take their life. Even if Yi Shiwen had already displayed strength that had surprised them, they still couldn't believe it. However, the good thing was that Yi Shiwen's sword had almost reached the level of a king-ranked martial artist could unleash. However, he had probably used up a lot of his strength. At their level of cultivation, how could they not understand the difference between them? They had to pay a huge price to achieve such a result. The world's power? You guys are considered the world's power? You are just a group of people who have been blinded by benefits. What monster! What genius! It's all bullsh*t. Yi Shiwen laughed coldly. Since he had started cultivating, the only belief that he had adhered to was to control himself. If even his greatest belief was controlled by others, then there was no need to talk about transcending cultivation. He was just a group of pitiful worms. I think you are really looking for death. Ing Bummy instantly transformed into a frightening giant demon eagle and rushed towards Yi Shiwen. The entire sky was filled with the sharp sound of breaking through the air. Every time his wings flapped, the sky would burn with raging flames. In the ancient legends of the demon world, when the demon eagles of this race flapped their wings, even the void would be destroyed. The entire world would be engulfed in flames and completely destroyed. This giant demon eagle opened its bloody mouth and spat out a huge beam of light. It was like a laser cannon that swept across the sky. From afar, it seemed like everything was destroyed. It tore a huge crack in the space and rushed towards Yi Shiwen. Many monstrous geniuses couldn't help but be a little shocked when they saw this. This old fellow had been able to dominate the Kurfürst Road for so many years. His foundation and bones were really deep to an extremely frightening level. Is this all you've got? Yi Shiwen snorted coldly. He punched out with the 6 paths of reincarnation fist. The 6 paths of reincarnation disc appeared in midair and blocked this frightening beam of demon light. Many people were shocked when they saw this. He was able to block such an attack with just his physical body. Yi Shiwen's strength was even stronger than they had imagined. It didn't seem like he had just used a big move. However, they didn't know that Yi Shiwen cultivated the Phoenix regeneration technique. His recovery speed was first class even in the world. He was talking nonsense with these people just now to buy time to recover. Otherwise, he would have already started a massacre. 6 Paths of Reincarnation Fist. You are the successor of the Azura Demon King? At this moment, Ingbumi's shocked and angry voice sounded. He couldn't help but be extremely angry. Yi Shiwen sneered, "What do you think?" Clang! Ingbumia had transformed into his human form. A long spear had appeared in his hand. The spear's momentum was like a dragon, tearing through everything. Layers of space rippled as it mixed with a terrifying demonic power as it smashed towards Yi Shiwen. "I don't care who you are. I don't have time to waste with you right now. Those who block me will die." Yi Shiwen blasted out a simple punch. His People Dao fist transformed into a dreadful divine kingdom and blasted out. His martial arts had already reached a whole new realm at this time. He had turned complexity into simplicity. Simplicity represented the general trend of the world. Bang! Yi Shiwen's fist collided with Ingbumi's spear. The high-grade god artifact's spear began to tremble violently, as if it had encountered the most terrifying of ravages. It produced a buzzing sound, as if it was crying out in pain. Poochie! Ingbumi's palm directly exploded. The force traveled through the long spear to his body. Then, his entire arm exploded. "Ah!" Ingbumi cried out in pain as he knelt on the ground. Just one punch had caused his entire arm to explode. This kind of power was simply unbelievable. It should be known that their race's physical bodies were also extremely strong. Killing the dragon race was not difficult at all. Now, he had ended up like this. Then, under the watchful eyes of everyone, the spear that was still hovering in the sky suddenly exploded, turning into specks of light that filled the sky as they flew out. He had exploded a high-grade divine weapon with his bare hand. Yi Shiwen had used his strength to change everyone's perception of him. It was simply a miracle. He had destroyed a high-grade divine tool with a single punch, and he had caused Ingbumie's arm to explode with a single punch. Wasn't this a little too abnormal? In the spatial storm caused by the spatial crack, Yi Shiwen's clothes fluttered. He looked like a god of war. "Ah, bastard, I'm going to kill you!" Ingbumi's eyes were red. The spiritual power in his body was burning. He seemed to have completely fallen into a state of madness. His hands, which had been blown apart by Yi Shiwen's strength, finally grew back. He directly grabbed towards Yi Shiwen. "Stubborn. If that's the case, don't blame me for being impolite." Yi Shiwen snorted coldly. He flipped his palm and suddenly summoned the stone sword. He rushed forward. Chapter 26:51. Ingbumi's roar was still echoing in the sky. He had never suffered such a huge loss before. He had been seriously injured by a single punch. Even in the past, during the most brutal times, he had never felt like this. And the human in front of him was not even at the peak of the sage plane. This was even more humiliating, a huge humiliation. Yi Shiwen held the sword in the stone in his hand, and did not use the sword of Avicii. In fact, this indirectly confirmed the speculation of the geniuses. Yi Shiwen could not continue using the sword of Avicii. He only took one step, and the entire Kurfürst heaven was shaking violently, as if an unknown ferocious beast was running. It seemed that he was even more ferocious than the 10 invincible experts fighting in the sky. He only needed to stab out with his sword. A simple move, but the sword will of the ruler burst out and instantly destroyed all of Ingbumi's attacks. Then, he chased after him and slashed hard on Ingbumi's body. Boom! A terrifying explosion erupted from Ingbumi's body. His entire body was petrified, as if he had encountered a shocking disaster. Then, he instantly shattered into dust. A genius at the peak of the sage plane had been completely annihilated by Yi Shiwen's sword. Who else wants to be with them? Yi Shiwen smiled coldly. He wanted to use Ingbumi to intimidate everyone, but his thinking was wrong. He had completely underestimated the degree to which these people desired the opportunity to become emperors. Perhaps to them, there was nothing more important than the opportunity to become emperors. Although the monstrous geniuses didn't say anything, the fact that they didn't leave was already a representation of their attitude. It was an attitude that they wouldn't back down. No matter what, we will not let you do anything rash. This is the last opportunity. The six-eared macaque stood out and said slowly. He held a giant axe in his hand and looked extremely ferocious. He was a violent ape. The six-eared macaque said what was on everyone's mind. This was their last opportunity. At most, they could kill the silver-haired youth from the sky race. Even if they returned with the chosen emperor's opportunity, they would still have another chance. Although this chance was minuscule, it was better than nothing, and Yi Shiwen's attack on Ji Renwang was to destroy their last glimmer of hope, especially when this matter had already become an inner demon, which was even more unbearable for them. You people still want to intercept Yi Shiwen? Destroying this so-called opportunity to become an emperor is the decree of the Qin emperor. Who dares to go against it? Ji Renwang roared, but at this time, he was besieged by the experts of the heavenly race, and was in a very difficult situation. They were afraid that Ji Renwang still had that terrifying sword lotus in his hands. If they let him release it again, then they would really be finished. This time, it was likely that no other sovereign emperors would come out to protect them. Humph, the Qin emperor is the sovereign emperor of your human race. What does his decree have to do with us? At this time, a powerful expert of the crystal race stood out. There was a bottle floating above his head, exuding multicolored light. This was a powerful divine tool that he had refined after cutting off his original body. The original body of the crystal race was a supreme divine material, almost like a natural Holy Spirit, a bit similar to Wu Zimo and Wu Xiu. However, they could also cut off their original body and refine a truly powerful divine tool. Yes, you want to use the Qin Emperor to suppress us? It's too simple. At this time, his words resonated with many people. Indeed, although the Qin Emperor was powerful, he was still the sovereign emperor of the human race. Using the decree of the sovereign emperor of the human race to control them was simply crazy. Only a few experts of the human race had already begun to retreat. The prestige of the Qin emperor in the human race was close to that of the 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors of the past, and it was even more recent. Moreover, he had once saved the human race in the heaven world from a crisis, and he had supreme prestige in the human race, so how could they not be afraid? Moreover, the thing that the Qin emperor was trying so hard to destroy was not as simple as they thought. Since ancient times, most of the legends about the Kurfürst Road were not so positive, and many of them were very, very negative. This made them even more hesitant, but these few evildoers of the human race were only a minority, and more people did not buy it. What does it have to do with you? Do you dare to say such words when the Qin emperor is still on the throne? Yi Shiwen's face revealed a somewhat sarcastic smile. The faces of these evildoers alternated between blue and white, but they became even more firm, and did not have the slightest intention of retreating. Although the deterrent power of the Qin emperor's decree was great, it was obviously not enough to resist the temptation of the opportunity to become an emperor. Let me fight with you. Perhaps, as you said, I may have fallen into the devil of my heart. Let me fight with you, and eliminate this devil of my heart. Six Ears Macaque held the giant axe in his hand, and looked at Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen suddenly understood. Among these people, not everyone was like Ing Bumie, who could not see through the devil at all. Some people had already seen through it, but they were unable to cut it off, so they placed their hopes on Yi Shiwen. Defeat them, cut off all their delusions, and return to the right path. Yi Shiwen took a deep breath. No matter what their motives were, these people must be defeated. In the distance, the opportunity to become an emperor was already falling, and it was getting closer and closer. He really did not have much time left. Boom! A monstrous spiritual power erupted from Six Ears Macaque's body, and it was like a shocking thunder. Every pore on his body was spewing out a shocking amount of blood energy, and with every step he took, the sky and earth in the distance seemed to collapse. No one would have thought that he would be so powerful, and he was even more powerful than the average evildoers. He had hidden himself very well all these years, and the Six Ears Macaque's cunning was evident from this. Many of the evildoers who had a history with Six Ears Macaque were now very excited, and they were thinking that after they got out, they must kill this scourge. Otherwise, they would not be able to eat or sleep in peace. Six Ears Macaque walked out step by step, and the sky and earth shook. The mountains and rivers were shaking, and the entire Kurfürst road was shaking. His entire body's blood energy pierced through the sky. Finally, Six Ears Macaque's aura rose to the peak, and he was like a demon. The spiritual power in his body surged, and his blood energy was mobilized to an extremely powerful level. He rushed towards Yi Shiwen. He finally made his move, and the giant axe in his hand swung down towards Yi Shiwen. The sky instantly exploded, and the mountains in the distance collapsed, and the earth was shattered. However, Yi Shiwen's countenance didn't change in the slightest. He just calmly attacked. In the face of this giant axe, he simply bombarded it with a punch. Boom! There was an extremely loud explosion, and it was like a tsunami and thunder. The sky exploded. At this moment, Six Ears Macaque truly felt what Ing Bummy had felt before. It was not that Ing Bummy was too weak, but rather that Yi Shiwen was too terrifying. He was simply a monster. He had never thought that there would be someone who could be this strong. This was just a casual attack from Yi Shiwen, and he had not used his full strength. However, at this moment, it was clear that this Six Ears Macaque's martial power was above Ing Bummy's. His palm split open, and blood splattered everywhere. His entire body was sent flying, but he did not suffer heavy injuries like Ing Bummy. This in itself proved that his physical body was above Ing Bummy's. Clang! At this crucial moment, another person made his move. It was Mr. Emptiness. A sharp sword appeared in his hand, and he swept it horizontally, bringing with him a sky full of sword rainbows that fell towards Yi Shiwen. Yi Shiwen pointed his finger, and it turned into a shocking sword aura that swept out, rushing towards Mr. Emptiness. Boom! A terrifying power collided with unparalleled power, sweeping out over 1,000,000 miles. Space completely shattered, and even the monstrous geniuses in the surroundings were greatly affected. Puff! Mr. Emptiness was sent flying, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. His eyes were filled with disbelief, and he was extremely resentful. He resented Yi Shiwen for being so strong. He was only in the Sage Realm, so how could he be so strong? Yi Shiwen took a step forward and flew towards the Sky Clan Great Array. In his heart, he was still thinking about the opportunity to become a martial emperor. As for killing these people, that was not his goal at all. Stop him, we can't let him destroy the opportunity to become a martial emperor. This is our last chance. If we let him destroy it, we will never have a chance to break through again. Mr. Emptiness roared. What are you waiting for? Do you really want him to succeed? That's right, Mr. Emptiness is right. If we can't stop him, then what's the point of us fighting for hundreds of thousands of years or even millions of years? It was the Golden Rock. As one of the leading birds in the world, it naturally had its own pride. As it walked, it brought with it rays of golden light in the void. It was as if it had traveled through space, and the imprints of the rules appeared. It was very frightening. It was a powerful master who had one foot in the king-ranked realm. In an instant, it had already rushed in front of Yi Shiwen, and it displayed a supreme martial art. 9 techniques of the heavenly rock. It let out a huge roar, and the sky was filled with golden light. It brought with it a terrifying aura, and it directly rushed towards Yi Shiwen. The 10,000 technique roulette appeared in Yi Shiwen's hand, and it firmly protected him. The 9 techniques of the heavenly rock created shocking ripples on the 10,000 technique roulette, and its power was astonishing. It was worthy of being one of the supreme martial arts of the Golden Rock race, but in the end it was still unable to break through the defense of the 10,000 technique roulette. At this moment Yi Shiwen finally moved. He had changed. He had become more ruthless, and he attacked decisively. He clearly knew that this matter was of great importance, but these people were still stubborn. This completely aroused his killing intent. Chapter 26:52. Almost everyone present was famous in their own era. Some of them were peerless geniuses who had dazzled several eras. They were the elites of a generation and the essence of a race. However, they had all gone crazy at this time. Their madness was directed towards Yi Shiwen. They only had one goal, and that was to kill this man who had given them a chill in their hearts. The opportunity to become an emperor was too tempting. Just like mortals who were painstakingly searching for an opportunity to prove their Tao, they were also searching for an opportunity to attain Tao. Their hearts were painstakingly searching for an opportunity that couldn't be understood by outsiders. This rising star was already so powerful that they felt like they were suffocating. Some of the old-timers even thought back to the distant past, where there had been people who had been so domineering that they had eventually reached the deathless level. The existence of such a person was a terrible shadow for others. As Yi Shiwen had said before, invincibility belonged to one person. Only one person could deter the heavens and 10,000 worlds. At this time, the battle cries shook the sky above the horizon. The clamor broke through the galaxy and caused the vast earth to tremble violently. So many peerless monstrous geniuses were attacking at the same time. What a terrible situation it was! It was as if the momentum was crushing the 9 heavens. Bang! Above the 9 heavens, Yi Shiwen, who was holding the stone sword, and the golden-winged rock collided. This was the collision of 2 supreme martial arts. It shook and split the sky. How could anyone stay still at this time? However, no one was burning themselves like Wu Zimo and releasing all the seals. After all, if they couldn't obtain the opportunity to become an emperor this time, they might have to come here again. And again, until countless years later. Puff! The golden-winged rock was knocked flying. A terrible force was wreaking havoc on its body. It could kill the peerless vicious bird of the Golden Dragon clan. However, it couldn't even block Yi Shiwen's attack. It was at a complete disadvantage in terms of physical strength. Yi Shiwen was like a human-shaped treasure dragon at this time. He was rampaging around, and no one could stop him. The stone sword in his hand swept out, breaking through everything, sweeping out a mighty sword radiance. Compared to Wu Zimo, its power was not inferior. His swordsmanship could even cut stars with his bare hands, let alone with such a divine weapon. Wu Ziyu could not unleash the true power of the stone sword at all, but because it was a companion magic treasure, it could be more compatible. It was completely different from Yi Shiwen's forceful refinement. He had already seen through many of the profoundness of the sword in the stone. This was one of the main reasons why he was able to defeat Wu Zimo so easily. Rumble! A series of explosions rang out. The sword chi from the sword in the stone swept through space, cutting through everything in its path. In a single moment, it had broken through everyone's attacks and even damaged quite a few god artifacts flying towards it. Many people were injured from afar, but under the stimulation of the blood, they became even crazier. Yi Shiwen was expressionless as he walked step by step towards the formation that the experts of the Tian clan had set up. At this moment, he was like the only god of death in the world. He was going to kill to prove his Tao and kill everyone. He threw out a punch. The 6 paths of reincarnation fist transformed into the 6 paths of reincarnation wheel and directly smashed an old antique to death. His physical body collapsed with a loud bang. In an instant, bone fragments flew everywhere, and it was incomparably bloody. This was an old antique who had dominated the world for countless years. He had lived in an era even longer than the ancestors of many monstrous geniuses. Now, he had died tragically at Yi Shiwen's hands. Compared to those unparalleled monstrous geniuses, these old antiques were more eager and more fearless. At the very least, those monstrous geniuses could still enter the king-ranked realm. However, these old antiques could not even enter the king-ranked realm. If they missed this opportunity, they might not have it again. However, in Yi Shiwen's eyes, these people were no different from ants. He had no intention of showing any mercy. He was like an unparalleled god of death. In his eyes, there was only the so-called opportunity to become a martial emperor. The earth was shaking and the sky was collapsing. At this moment, a few terrifying beasts appeared in front of everyone. They were actually beasts with extremely rare bloodlines. These beasts did not belong to powerful clans, but they had ancient bloodlines. They were not inferior to those monstrous geniuses at all. Unexpectedly, they also rushed towards Yi Shiwen. Their bodies were the most powerful treasures. Therefore, they did not hold back at all and rushed over. Their claws clawed at Yi Shiwen, wanting to pierce through his skull. They were cold-blooded and cruel. They had suppressed their ferocity for countless years, and now they were completely unleashed. Although they did not belong to any clans, all of their ancestors were famous kings of the beasts. They had extraordinary martial skills that were sleeping in their bloodlines. As long as they cultivated to a certain level, they would naturally awaken. They were very terrifying. The sound of their huge claws cracking was deafening. The void was trampled, and the void was smashed. Their claws were comparable to high-grade divine weapons. "Those who block me will die," Yi Shiwen roared. He seemed like an eternal god of death. He suddenly stepped on the ground, and the space seemed to have turned upside down. It set off 1,000 layers of huge waves, and expanded in all directions. The attacks of these fierce beasts were actually blocked. Moreover, this power was still spreading in all directions. Those fierce beasts that were originally aggressive were actually shaken and sent flying. They were simply not a match for this power. It was a complete mess for a while. Yi Shiwen's footsteps were still moving forward. No one could stop him. "Kill. I don't believe that he can hold on for long," someone roared. Such a battle consumed a lot of energy, especially in order to suppress these monstrous geniuses. Yi Shiwen certainly did not dare to continue to hide his strength. He would die once his energy was exhausted. "Pucci!" A sword light slashed down from the sky. This person's voice hadn't even faded when he was chopped into a mass of flesh and blood. His body exploded, and his primordial spirit was destroyed by the sword. His body was petrified, and he would never get a chance to resurrect again. This scene was incomparably cruel. It was incomparably ferocious and barbaric. Even the experienced and knowledgeable monstrous geniuses shuddered at this moment. Yi Shiwen suddenly stepped on the ground. His figure tore a phantom in the sky. He was rampaging. He wanted to kill his way out of the crowd of monstrous geniuses and old antiques. Puff, puff, puff. Those monstrous geniuses and old antiques were sent flying one after another wherever he passed. They were either seriously injured or died tragically. It was incomparably chaotic. Many people were torn to pieces in the void. Golden divine blood splashed out unceasingly. Golden divine bones fell to the ground and triggered a huge earthquake. It was incomparably heavy. The bloodstains on these bones and flesh might not disappear even after hundreds of thousands of years. After all, existences of such level had once fallen here. What's going on? Many figures appeared in the distance at this time. They were the experts of various races who had just broken through the blockade of the celestial race. They were almost scared to death when they saw the scene in the distance. Those who were fighting in the void were, without exception, peerless monstrous geniuses whose names had shaken the world. Perhaps they were old antiques who had lived for countless years. However, they had fallen one by one. In fact, several of them had fallen together and exploded. They had died extremely miserable death. It was unimaginable. They felt as if they were dreaming. The death of one of these geniuses would cause countless people to discuss it. So, they had fallen like dumplings. My God, this is the twilight of the gods. It's the real twilight of the gods, someone exclaimed. He had been scared out of his wit. Even a real deity would be scared to death when they saw this scene. What was even more terrifying was that this kind of killing was not in the past. Yi Shiwen's killing was still going on. They were fortunate enough to see the most terrifying scene. Yi Shiwen was wielding the stone sword, wantonly killing those old antiques and monstrous geniuses. However, these old antiques and monstrous geniuses were advancing wave after wave like crazy. Although some of them were scared out of their wits, or had completely comprehended and escaped, most of them still had a crazy appearance. What the hell is going on? They felt as if they had missed the most important thing. Why had Yi Shiwen become the public enemy? Compared to those high and mighty monstrous geniuses and old antiques, these people felt the competition and pressure from Yi Shiwen more. Therefore, they paid more attention to him. They recognized Yi Shiwen almost immediately. However, what they saw was a scene that scared them to death. Heavens, if this scene spreads out, Yi Shiwen will become the public enemy of the world, many people murmured. This was getting crazier and crazier. Compared to the current situation, the disturbance caused by Yi Shiwen killing Wu Ziyu and the others was simply child's play. Those monstrous geniuses had the possibility of growing up, but they had not yet grown up. But now these monstrous geniuses were real monstrous geniuses. What is that? Is it the Emperor Opportunity? At this time, some people discovered that the experts of the celestial race were constantly guiding the Emperor Opportunity to descend. All of a sudden, there was a commotion and excitement. They seemed to understand why Yi Shiwen was in conflict with so many monstrous geniuses. Looking at the direction in which Yi Shiwen was breaking through, they knew that he was aiming for the Emperor Opportunity. However, what made them feel strange was why the experts of the major forces would join hands to deal with Yi Shiwen. What the hell did he do? Moreover, they would rather intercept Yi Shiwen even at the expense of the opportunity to become an emperor? Compared to Yi Shiwen's craziness, Ji Renwang on the other side was not so shocking. He could only protect himself under the siege of the celestial race expert. He was far less crazy than Yi Shiwen. Chapter 2653. No matter how they looked at it, the entire scene was extremely strange. Why was it always a group of people trying to kill a single person? What exactly did the two of them do that forced the crowd to eliminate them first? Could it be because they were too powerful and had the highest chance of obtaining the opportunity to become a martial emperor? It didn't seem like it. After all, the opportunity to become an emperor was about to fall into the hands of the celestial race's experts. Why were the others so indifferent? Rumble! Terrifying collisions broke out. These attacks fell on the 10,000 method roulette above Yi Shiwen's head. Each attack set off a shocking ripple. The 10,000 method roulette's reputation wasn't just for show. It blocked all of the attacks and even launched a counterattack. However, Yi Shiwen's consumption was also increasing. Originally, it wasn't too strenuous for him to control the 10,000 method roulette, but he had to deal with so many monstrous geniuses and old antique. Blocking any one of them would consume a lot of magic power. Even if he was tyrannical, he wouldn't be able to handle so many of them. Pucci, a powerful one-armed knight, was pierced by Yi Shiwen's sword. He couldn't be stopped at all. He had left behind a glorious legend in many worlds, but now, he couldn't be more dead. However, Yi Shiwen didn't even glance at him. It was as if he was looking at a dead ant. His ruthless gaze coldly swept through the people who had been blinded by the opportunity to become an emperor. Since they didn't want to retreat, then he would kill them. He would kill his way out and kill until the world was terrified. At this time, they were already a little scared. Yi Shiwen would seriously injure or kill an expert every time he attacked. In a short period of time, dozens of incomparably powerful monstrous geniuses and old antiques had fallen. The number of people who were seriously injured was no less than this number. All of a sudden, a large number of people had died, but it was still huge. Yi Shiwen was still under heavy threat. If they were just stalling for time, then their goal would be achieved. Suddenly, a dragon's roar reverberated from the ninth heaven. A giant dragon flashed in the void, and transformed into an astonishing sword light. It pierced through the sky, and slashed down towards Yi Shiwen with a dreadful willpower. It turned out to be a sword light. It wasn't an ordinary dragon. To be precise, it should be a golden dragon that had been slaughtered and then refined into a sword. The colossal golden dragons were royalty among the dragons. With the strength of the dragon clan, who would dare to do such a thing? That person would simply become the enemy of the entire dragon clan. However, this treasured sword was refined in such a way. The strength of its master could be seen from this. Yi Shiwen looked over and saw that it was the silver-haired young man who had made a move. Although he was in the formation, he was obviously paying attention to the situation in other places. Yi Shiwen was obviously here for the opportunity to become a Kurfürst. How could he leave it at that? He actually took advantage of the chaos to attack. Within the sword radiance, there was a terrifying aura surging out. It was like a vast ocean that was originally restrained in a bottle. Now it was completely released. The terrifying sword radiance exuded the aura of the great path as it fell down like a waterfall. It was really a peerless sword. The person who used it was also a peerless master who was completely above the so-called 12 divine generals. Although he hadn't reached the level of the king-ranked realm, Yi Shiwen felt a real threat from him. It was simply unimaginable that he could actually cultivate to this level. Even Yi Shiwen had to look at him in a different light. No wonder the Heaven clan would actually choose such a person to inherit the opportunity to become a Kurfürst. In terms of aptitude, he seemed to have such qualifications. However, what was even more unforgettable was that in the face of the sudden attack of the peerless sword, Yi Shiwen actually only used his fists to blast out the infinite six-paths roulette, suppressing the surroundings. Rumble! In an instant, all kinds of abnormally active great path laws in the sky collapsed and turned into powder under the impact of this terrifying force. The strength of Yi Shiwen's body had also shocked everyone. It seemed that the strength of Yi Shiwen's sword in the stone had made many people forget that his body was equally tyrannical. In fact, it was even more tyrannical. In the end, Yi Shiwen was stronger. Perhaps it was because the silver-haired young man used most of his energy to guide the opportunity to become a Kurfürst. The sword radiance that he slashed out was directly smashed by Yi Shiwen's fist. Even his golden dragon sword was directly sent flying. When the Heaven clan experts saw this scene, it was as if they had seen a ghost. That lord's attack was actually broken so easily. Although that lord had not truly entered the king-ranked realm, his status in the Heaven clan was comparable to that of ordinary king-ranked realm experts. He was known as the person who had the potential to become a Kurfürst. The Heaven clan had also spared no effort in nurturing him. Among his peers, he was really invincible. Even king-ranked realm experts had fought against him before. Yet, he was actually sent flying with one punch. This human was too terrifying. It was hard to imagine how terrifying he would be if he was allowed to grow. You guys are still trying to stop me. Can't you guys see that your opportunity to become a Kurfürst is about to be taken away by that Heaven Clan expert? When he takes it away, even if you guys stop me, you won't have a chance," Yi Shiwen shouted. At this time, the opportunity to become a Kurfürst had already landed on the silver-haired young man's head. It was only 3 feet away. He was almost successful. Between heaven and earth, all kinds of laws appeared. They manifested around that ball of green light. Almost with the naked eye, the laws of the Great Path were visible. It felt like someone was explaining the various principles of the Great Path to you. At this time, everyone finally understood why this Kurfürst was called the Kurfürst. It contained many insights that one needed to become a Kurfürst. It could help one get through the most difficult step and obtain the Tao. After confirming the ancient legend, everyone became even more excited. One by one, they came to their senses. At this time, no one dared to stop Yi Shiwen. First, they would die if they tried to stop him. Second, they couldn't let this silver-haired young man from the Heaven Clan obtain the opportunity to become a Kurfürst. Otherwise, who were they working so hard for? Yi Shiwen frowned slightly and breathed a sigh of relief. In the series of collisions just now, although he looked incomparably powerful, in reality, his spiritual power had been consumed by 80 to 90%. With just his physical body alone, he was at most comparable to ordinary geniuses. How could he suppress so many geniuses? After all, he was not at the peak of the sage realm. His spiritual power had not climbed to the peak. Otherwise, there would not have been such a problem. At this time, the latecomers also rushed over like crazy. Although their chances of success were not high, if they were lucky enough to encounter it, it would not be a problem for them to soar to the sky in the future. Just based on the traces of the Great Path that were displayed, even if they could not obtain the Tao, becoming a king was a sure thing. Even if they could not become a Kurfürst, they would be able to stand out and become someone above others. Rumble! In the distance, there was a frenzied battle. The masters of the Heaven Clan who were originally surrounding Ji Renwang rushed in the direction of the Great Matrix, wanting to stop all the masters of the various clans. Ordinary masters were no pressure for the elites of the various clans. Although the leader, the six-eared macaque, had been seriously injured by Yi Shiwen and seemed to be unable to withstand a single blow, it was not like that. It was not that he was not strong enough, it was just that Yi Shiwen was too terrifying. He could kill gods and Buddhas. These elite masters of the Heaven Clan were no match for him at all. Only the masters of the 12 heavenly generals could stop these crazy geniuses and old antiques. For the opportunity to become a Kurfürst, these people even dared to attack Yi Shiwen, let alone a few masters of the Heaven Clan. The attacks of these experts were like a long dragon that rampaged straight into the Great Formation. Only then did they barely manage to be blocked by the many experts of the Tian clan who had rushed over a step earlier. At this moment, the opportunity to become an emperor had already touched the forehead of that silver-haired young man. The silver-haired young man spread his arms as though he was hugging something. A jade-green light erupted, but his face revealed an expression of agony. A crack actually appeared on his forehead. His skin, which even divine weapons wouldn't be able to cut open, was actually torn apart by the jade-green light. His entire skull was split open and his brain was slowly being stuffed inside. The whole scene looked incomparably bloody and disgusting. There was no such thing as the legendary celebration of obtaining the opportunity to become a Kurfürst, where the golden lotuses of the heavens and the immortal springs of the earth burst forth. It was as if it was seizing the body of the Heaven Clan. It was incomparably strange. Despite how strong the silver-haired young man was, he couldn't take it any longer. Clenching his hands into fists, he crushed the air around him, causing terrifying magical power to erupt out. Even the freakishly talented old-timers were unable to advance an inch. At this time, those monstrous geniuses and old fogies were extremely anxious. They were somewhat regretful. Why did they have to challenge Yishiwen? Even if he destroyed the opportunity to become a Kurfürst, it was still better than letting these masters of the Heaven Clan obtain it. The Heaven Clan was the public enemy of almost all the races in the myriad heavens. If they wanted to return, they would naturally not be welcomed. They were almost the public enemy. What they had done before was equivalent to helping the public enemy. They felt that they had been fooled. They had been used as a spear for no reason. They were ashamed and angry at the same time. They crazily attacked. All kinds of unique martial arts were bombarded. The enchantment on the silver-haired young man's body immediately shook. However, it wouldn't be broken so quickly for a while. The opportunity to become a Kurfürst continued to fall and fuse with the silver-haired young man. Oh God, do we really want to let the remnants of the Heaven Clan return? This thought emerged in everyone's mind. They hoped that someone would turn the tide at this critical moment. However, a loud shout was heard at this time. A blood-red sword light pierced through the vast sky. It grew to tens of thousands of feet in length. It instantly broke the enchantment of the silver-haired young man and pierced through his head. Bang! You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.